Good morning.
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning. Uh, I love the doorbell. It cracks me up. You guys can hear it, right? Did you hear that? No? Oh, funny. Some of my classes say they could hear it. I can't turn off the waiting room anymore, which always confuses me.
Oh, now I hear it.
You guys do.
So it's not the best solution in the world, but Zoom is so concerned with security, they keep changing stuff. But at least now I hear a doorbell, which makes sure I don't leave anyone locked out. That happened a couple times. Frustrated students, like it's an entire class, they were locked out only once or twice. So I have to be grateful, I suppose. All right, give me a minute. People are going to be arriving. There was couple of weird little things this morning. I apologize for being a whole 2 minutes late. You know when you're in a hurry how the weirdest things happen? I knocked a picture frame off the wall and there was glass all over the floor. So I had to do this last minute, I must sweep up the glass. In fact, I got to shout to my family so that they're barefoot people. And I want them to be warned. Give me a second. Hey ladies. I broke a picture frame by the garden door. I swept like crazy, but there may be glass. Be careful. Yeah. Okay. And then someone realized, Liwai, I thank you. She noticed that the date was wrong on the home page by one day. So I think some people might have been confused. Weird morning. Anyway, here we are. Let me let those couple more people in. All right. Jeez. Broken glass, wrong dates. Gosh. Anyway, I'm excited about today. I want to tell you what we've got in store. Excuse me. Two things really. One, I want to do that like little preview of the drafts for the project that's due next week. And I also want to share with you a handful of new techniques. So I want to say something, I saw this TikTok video and I almost wanted to share it with everybody in this class, except for it wouldn't help me. It was an art student doing this TikTok video. I don't know if any of you guys have seen this. I think it's pretty popular, at least amongst art students, who was making fun of critiques in art school. And it was just a riot. He kept switching back and forth between being the teacher and then being the student. And it really, frankly, it kicked my, oh, never mind. Anyway, I had to, I want to say something to be clear. So we've got like 26 people in here, right? And if I gave you all the critique time that you truly deserve, I'll sleep through about 5 people, right? I did the math this morning and I realized we have 5 total classes worth of pure critique. There's 4 projects, so all 4 get a whole class of critique. So that's 4 classes right there. Plus there's about 1 hour like we're gonna do today of these preliminary kind of critiques, when you have the draft. So that winds up being another 4 hours. It's the equivalent of a whole class. Leah, I see your camera's not working. Thank you for telling me. You're okay then. Appreciate that for the heads up.
I also wanted to say that I had to join on a different device again. I know you saw 2 different Mileses. That's why. So.
Well, thank you for letting me know. Really, these heads up really help me. Thanks, Miles. And that's okay. I have people who use both their phone and their laptop. I didn't get it for a while, why I was having, 2 accounts for some people, but that's fine with me. So anyway, that basically means we have 15 classes, so 10 are primarily technique, and the equivalent of 5 are primarily critique. 10 critique, 5 critique. I don't really know what the perfect proportion is. And I do have to race ahead a little bit, so I'm going to keep it short. But you know, the weird thing is, of course, you need a lot of time with technique, and not just in Adobe Illustrator, but in any class that you take, whether it's physical or not. I remember art school very clearly, and I remember how long back at that time, you know, it was a lot of time spent on oil paint or acrylic paint or whatever else. And each of these things took a very long time to get the hang of the technique. And yet in the big picture, it's the critique that makes all the difference. It's always about insight, visual insight, and conceptual insight. And that's really the most important thing in art school. You know, I want to say something, you know, you're kind of a sophisticated crowd. And, you know, I've taught a number of schools, so I feel like I could speak, you know, knowledgeably about that, like what the different crowds are like. The FIT crowd, it's like a thinking crowd. And yet, some of you guys are fresh out of high school. Some of you guys are coming from other schools, I realize. There's different age groups. But very often, it's the conceptual side that's kind of missing, because people are used to making art for themselves. You know, really, when you think about it, some of you guys have been drawing, for example, since you were like born, and it was always for yourself, you know, and maybe your friends, you know. But that really changes in art school, you know, it completely changes. I mean, frankly, to make a living on this, we all have to realize that we're service, we're doing service. I'm doing service right now as a teacher, and we all do service as artists. So that basically means you have to care about your audience and how they see. So bear with me. I'm always looking at you. It's one reason why I insist on cameras, you know, as provided they work, because I can tell if you're getting what I'm saying. And if you're not, I never blame you. I always look at myself. You know, how can I say that? Because the audience matters more than the one person who's dishing it up. You know what I mean? It's like you could sing to yourself, and that's fantastic. But if you're going to invite an audience, you have to care more about the audience. So I want to say something to you, you know, a bunch of creatives here, and you're all artists to me, and I think most of you see yourself that way, and you all will. You know, there's two sides to art. Of course, there's self-service. And if you're going to become a fine artist, you know, any kind of fine artist, painter or whatever, it might be mostly self-service for a while. The idea in the fine art world is your self-service can serve a specific audience if you find them. You know, that's like the fine art idea. You know, Jackson Pollock was doing his famous splash paintings, and at first there was no audience. But then, you know, he found the audience, and then it started to grow. That's fine art, and some of you will wind up being fine artists. Commercial art's the opposite, though. You don't hope to find an audience that matches you. You go out of your way to approach them, right? So I want to, why I bring this up now. I have mathematically 2 or 3 minutes to spend on each of your projects, because it's only draft week, right? And that might feel really cheap, but I want to be clear with you. All your teachers dealt with this in art school. The entire history of large-scale art schools work this way. There's just no way. You know, if you were in the Renaissance, you might be 5 apprentices, you know, to Leonardo or something. Just want to make sure that everybody's in the room. It looks good. 5 apprentices in that case. But really, in the modern world, you know, art schools are always used like this. You know? So here's what I'm going to say. Listen very closely to whatever I say to anybody else. Because you might think, oh, wait a second, he's not talking to me, but that's just what I needed to hear, what he just said to that person. You know, I'm hoping in combination of looking at all your work, we could find out what's going on. Now, I peeked already, early this morning, because a lot of you put your work in early. So I got to peek, and I got to see what the patterns were. So some of you guys designed beautiful pages, really good-looking pages, but amongst those, some didn't communicate. In other words, I really didn't know what they were trying to tell me. Other people communicated well, but they were very repetitive. You know, all 6 or 7 drawings looked about the same. you know, and it just wasn't interesting. And I never say these things to be mean. That's not my interest. It's to be blunt. Because if it's not interesting, no one looks, there's no work for you. You know what I mean? Out of school. No one's going to look at anything if it's not interesting. So it has to come first. It has to be interesting enough to get the attention. I call that impact. It has to have impact no matter what it is, impact. But then it has to communicate to someone other than you, right? And you can't tell me, oh, this is what I mean, because you won't be able to do that in the real world. You're never going to talk to your audience. Only your artwork's going to talk. So you need the impact, and you need to communicate, and for this project, without words, right? So some of you are going to have to revise radically before next week. You know, most of you are going to revise a reasonable amount. Let's see. All right. So I'm going to jump right in. Does anybody have any preliminary questions for me? Okay. So this is going to be kind of quick, and I'm not going to get a lot of response from people. I want to be clear about that. You know, I'll get some. I'm just being realistic because I want to make sure everybody hears from me in this regard. Next week, we'll spend more time when the finals are in. All right, I'm going to share my screen. I want to get to the handout just quickly, make sure I didn't forget to mention anything, but I have to do it quickly. So you notice I've got two menus now because my two groups separated because of all those holidays. So now that people are not confused, you should always look at your section and just ignore the other one. So I'm coming down to class 6. First thing I want to say quickly that's practical just for all of us is there's going to be assets fairly often. There was last week, you might remember we worked on this umbrella kind of briefly. There's going to be more assets this week. So you could download the assets from the home page where it says Class 6 Assets, or right from the handout, it's got the same kind of thing here. Here it says download today's assets. So I'm going to talk more about that later. I don't even want to get involved with it. But if you're comfortable with downloading and that kind of thing, I don't mind if you do it while I talk. There should be a revisions folder inside of our Google Drive at this stage. So if anyone wasn't happy with your project 1, you could give me a revision anytime you want. Go to the usual link. By the way, you know, the links, these are the same links to get there. But once you're there, open the revisions folder before you drop a revision in. Now, I haven't done the grade yet, so some of you want to wait to see what your grade was. You're like, look, if I get an A, I'm not going to revise it. So you could wait. If you gave it to me on time, you can give me a revision anytime. Anyway, you do have to give it to me with the original name. Just add V2 before the end. That just means version 2, and put it in my revisions folder. I'm sorry to be racing a little bit. It's just, that's life at this school. Anybody have any questions about revisions? I guess it's pretty clear. All right, thank you. All right, the YouTube playlist is active. All right, I'm just gonna jump right in. Do you want to just check a quick thing before I jump right in? I have to just double check how much time I actually have. I lost a little bit of time. All right, it's okay. Okay, so there's the revisions folder. You just double click it before you drop any revisions in. All right, let's look at what we've got today. So, you know, I'm gonna actually open this a little bigger. Easier for us to see what's going on. All right, so we've got several items here. In a bottle that says piercing aftercare, right? And you can see that this person's preparing their nostril for a nose ring. Now, the only thing I want to say to you, Anisha, is, you know, you communicated the idea, but it's really hard to be interesting when it's pretty much, you know, 4 of almost the exact same drawing of a nose. You know, like these 4 are just very, very repetitive. So I just got to be blunt with you. You can't really have impact with that much repetition going on. You have clarity, which I respect, and you have some nice color too, which I respect. The other part of it is pretty weird looking at a dismembered nose. You know, in general, when it comes to the human face, the advice is avoid cutting off body parts. I remember a teacher telling me this when I was in college, and I didn't really believe it. And as I went through my career, I started realizing how true that was. People are just turned off, you know, by it. And frankly, it offers more impact if there's a head there, you know. Anisha, you there? Yes, you are. So I just want you to hear me out. It's going to take some more work. If you want to leave the face out, you can, but you're going to have to find some other ways to keep this interesting. You know, it was like just too easy, just copying the nose over and over and adding the tool that you need. So you're going to have to rethink it. One thing you could do that might be helpful is a little zooming in and zooming out. You know, maybe at some point I could see the person's whole head, so I even care. You know what I mean? And you have to think of variety. Imagine you had a camera and you were going to a place that does nose piercings. You know, how would you do it if you had a camera? You'd probably show the person sitting there, and then you might come up on their face, and then eventually you might come in on their nose. You know, I don't know. But there'd have to be some variety to keep it interesting, right? So you should think like a camera person, right? You know, there's stuff there, the point is made, but you have to find some way to keep it interesting. Okay, so here we've got something also, you know, kind of ambitious. And the right off the bat, it's interesting. And, you know, one of the things is there's variety, even with repetition. And also beautiful color. The last one also had very fine color. Here, I just want you to notice something that goes on. We've got the pot in all 6 images, that's true. We go from this angle to a completely different angle, right? So that's got a lot of variety. And over here, even though it's the same angle, suddenly the color changes, you know, because these ingredients were poured in, right? But now we've got color now. So this row is rather interesting, even with the repetition. You know, by the way, I like repetition. You know, think about rock and roll or rap music. You know, both those music forms are so repetitious. By the way, I'm a musician, and I'm the most repetition musician in the world. I'm a bass player, and I just love repeating a good groove. So that's okay for visual artists too. But how do you also keep it interesting? You know, that's part of the challenge. If you're going to use repetition to create visual rhythm, how do you keep it interesting? So, all right, so then we come down here, and you know, okay, so it's the same circle as this one, the pot that is, but look at this crazy zigzaggy ramen noodle, and they really do look like this. You know, it's such a strong visual graphic, it's almost psychedelic. It stays interesting. And then we move over here and it's still, I got this V kind of thing going on, you know, because of, I guess it's peppers and cucumbers or, you know, something like that. And they're making this V shape, which you have to notice is very strong because it implies this. Look from the top left, coming right down the package, all the way to the pepper, you know, into here and then back up again to the right corner. So there's a very strong V shape going on this design because of this in the middle. Also, it's worth noticing that twice the margins overlapped in a very clever way. If the margin got cut off for any reason, I'd still understand this. And if we were lucky enough to portray it, including the orange margin, I get to see even more. I think this is really very, very nice. You know, I'm sure the artist is wondering, what else can I do? You know, it's so strong that I'd probably give it a high grade anyway. And I don't want to just like off the top of my head, just, you know, say things because that's what teachers do. God, do I hate that. You know, there's a little part of me that's wondering what would happen if, Minjong, where are you? Can you wait? Oh, there you are. I see you. I see you. You know, I like the way you use empty space so much that I'm hesitant to say anything. I know FIT students are so earnest that sometimes I'll say a little thing, maybe this, maybe that, and they're like, no, he means definitely. This is not definitely. This is something I'm wondering about. You know, this is a lot of empty space. You handled it so well, though. It's very calm. So I'm not sure I want to mess with it. But I am kind of curious if there was another version that somehow used a little bit more of this space. You know, I don't know. Could it be insets? I don't know, little examples of, I don't know. I would, you know, at first I was thinking, wow, I wonder if this was bigger to make use of this space, and then this right side bigger. But I don't know if that would be confusing. I don't know if it would be crowded. You know, I mean, John, I'm gonna leave this up to you. I gotta tell you what I would do if I were you. If you were gonna do anything, I'd save a copy like this. You know, and if you want to improvise a little on another copy just to try some experiments, in the end, you'd see for yourself which is better. And give me that one. You're in very good shape right now. So, you know, frankly, I'm not worried. But if you, I know myself, even if I'm rocking, I'm still going to do a few versions just to see if there's a surprise that I missed. It's very nice. You know, it's interesting to see what people did to keep them interesting and whether or not they used frames and that type of thing. You know, this one is a very unique kind of feeling. You know, I might even say flavor. The color, it carries a lot of weight on this one. It's such an unusual and limited palette. You know, it's primarily 2 colors and black, which is worth noticing. And all the black lines, it's very much line drawing with a couple fills. Here's the liquid filling, you know. But it's mostly like a line drawing where the line has some kind of interesting sort of glow kind of quality about it, which I think really works. If this little glow around the line wasn't there, I'm not sure it would be nearly as interesting. Samantha, I really kind of respect that. There's also some unusual things, like there's like a horizon line kind of, which shows the edge of the table, you know, behind the objects. One thing, Samantha, I really want you to look out for is, Samantha, where are you? Can you wave at me just so I could find you easily? Hi. So don't let me see the line through the object unless the object is glass. You know what I mean? So it's like, for example, this box can't really have a line going through it. You know, this picture looks great that way. In fact, just about everything except for the box. So you might have to give the box a fill, you know, the same orangey color, golden color you used. So I don't see that. But one thing I do like is you've got this horizontal line, and this one's a little lower. So I'm actually watching the kind of movement. This one's the same. So I think that kind of works only because, you know, at first I would say, gee, you know, why would one be higher? Should they be consistent or should they all be different? But I like it mostly because the next row also took the first slot and it made it a little different. In this case, you just took the line out. It's very unusual because this is cut off, but I kind of like it. Creates a lot of air around it. So this has a higher line. This has no line at all. But the next 2, say, columns have a consistent line, which is kind of interesting. I want to back up for 1 second and I'll make sure I understand it. I see a lemons over there, so I'm expecting lemonade, but I really don't know for sure. I can see that there's several ingredients. Something's being poured into the pitcher, but I can't tell which object it is. And then these 2 get poured in, and it's stirred, and then it's poured again, and then it looks almost like there's a glass inside the glass. So I have to say, I love the look of this one. I really do. But I don't quite understand it entirely. So if there's anything you could do to clarify it, it would help. I'm not exactly sure what's being made. You know, if it's lemonade, you maybe make a bigger deal out of the lemons. Is it lemonade? It is lemonade. So I think one thing you can do is definitely make a big deal out of the lemons. You could even maybe strew lemons around the entire thing as a decorative element that gets me in that mood, you know, thinking lemonade. You know, this one here should look more like a lemon, maybe by showing the other half of the lemon still on the table. See, you got a little one. Maybe they're bigger, so I get the point. I'd make a bigger deal out of the lemons. I think that would help. Also, try to figure out how to make this not look like there's another glass inside the glass. That's a little confusing. So that might take some time. You know, maybe some of these things shouldn't have strokes on it, but that's a little confusing. Really like the look and feel of this one. You know, I just need more clarity. Guys, I do apologize for, you know, not getting to ask you questions and all of that. I will do more of that next week. This is a fun one, you know. It's interesting. This artist chose to go with boxes, separate frames, right? The last artist chose to go with an open air, right? And they're both good conclusions. This artist used that purple background for a lot of value. It looks really good with the white of the margins and the white between the boxes. So that purple's carrying a lot of weight. Now, when we look through it, I want to show you what's my favorite stuff and what isn't. Sunaya, can you help me? Can you wave at me? Where are you? I see you. Sunaya, you're barely in the picture. In fact, you're peeking over the, you know, you're doing one of these. Hi, guys. All right, anyway. Anyway, I like your work. I want you to see something. I want you all to take a look at the bottom row for a minute. Like, this is a strong row, you know, really. You look at these strong verticals going on here, setting up a rhythm, I might say again. Each one with a rectangle underneath it that sort of mimics the entire frame. Isn't that cool? I mean, the entire page has got 6 boxes. The ice tray has 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 boxes, but one reflects the other, which I think is sort of, you know, clever and beautiful and intuitive. But then these kind of follow along, and as simple as that refrigerator is, man, it just looks great. Sanaya, though, you do need to move the refrigerator a little to the left. It's kind of awkward that it has this much space on the left of it and less space on the right. You see that, right? So I'd move that over a little bit. But then the pops themselves show up again with strong vertical rhythms. It's like a kind of a answer to this way over here and suddenly here. So this is my favorite row. You know, the top row is okay, but it's not nearly as good. So you really have to stare this down and figure out how you can bring some of that to the top. So I want to say a few things about the top. You know, this frame's exciting. It's the one with the most color. There's a couple weird things about it, though. Like, it's leaning very heavily on the floor. Like, why is all this space empty? You know, so that's kind of weird. So I would consider redistributing these objects to make use of this space. You know, right now it's almost like there's a big sky, you know, like a beach scene, but it isn't. And also, so it's crowding the floor. So I'd move it away from the floor for sure. But then they're also crowding each other. You know, it's a very airy design in all the other 5 frames. So the crowd here is not too particularly helpful. I think it's easy to fix, though. I'll move that stuff around. I also want to say to everybody, when you're doing a curved object, you really have to decide whether you're going to curve the bottom or not. You know, if this is at your eye level, it would look straight. But as soon as it's lower than your eye level, which is hard for me to imitate, it's always curved unless it's exactly at your eye level, and then it straightens out. So it's a straight line here. But as soon as I move it up or down, it's round. You know, and I'm not saying one can't take artistic license and flatten curved things, but only if it works for you. I honestly think this would look a lot better if the bottom was curved. You know, so, but I'm not sure, but it just makes this more boring. Straight, 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 straight. So I don't know. The other thing I want to say, again, it's about space. The space here is so elegant. This one's elegant too. This one too. This is a little odd. I think I'd give some room around it by making the blender smaller. I'd make the blender smaller. And if it looks good with the straight line, then keep it. Maybe it will. But mostly it's just crowding the ceiling and the floor, and I'm not quite sure why. See, as large as the refrigerator is, the white of it plays with the margin nicely. So it breathes a lot. This is getting a little cramped. Similarly here. So, and again, like, should this be on the left? Would it be better on the right? Would it be better in the middle? You know, move stuff around until the design sings. This stuff is kind of dead on, just about. So I just move these things around, change scale a little bit until this sings. Because I get very clearly what you're doing, you know. I do want to just say something that's a little weird in terms of concept. So now I like this a lot, so I think it's actually going to, you know, do well. But, you know, you never put the stuff in the blender. You skip from ingredients to the stuff's already in the blender. So
I said the same thing to myself.
Yeah, it's pretty weird, you know. It's like a movie where you know, we skip the bank robbery and the whole movie's about a bank robbery. You know? So I think you might have to rethink that top row a little bit. You know, this isn't even necessary. If you made this small enough and open the blender, you could hang some of these things over the top to imply they're going in. You know, so you could really make good use of this. And then just move this stuff around to figure out how to design it best. All right. Let me get back in there. You know, so one thing I just want to say in general to everybody is I love this stage. You know, behind you, you did your sketches, you thought it through, then you do some stuff in Illustrator. The best thing about Illustrator is how it lets you change your mind. You know, it's so much more flexible than Photoshop in that way. You know, I could just keep moving stuff around, and I'm going to show you some tricks, hopefully today, to help you do that. So it's easy to say, okay, I got my basics, but I don't like this, I don't like that, and you could go in until it really shines, and that's sort of how we do it. So you're all in good shape in that regard. You know, this page has got a distinctive kind of, you know, attitude about it. It's very refined, kind of, you know, elegant, selective, and dare I say, rather Japanese feeling. And it's not just because of the sushi. I do believe that. Yeah, it is sushi. It's just the whole vibe of the design. You know, a lot of space. I love this decorative element on the top, big surprise, and on the bottom, really nice kind of framing element like that. So here's this kind of mat, you know, that people make sushi on, and this must be the seaweed that goes on it, and then the rice is laid out, right? Here it looks like it's turned over, which I'm a little confused by that, you know, as a sushi eater. But then stuff goes on top of it. Being a big fan of avocado roll, I'm going to guess that's avocado. Anyway, then it rolls up to create the tubular object, and here they're cut up and then they're served. I like this a lot. I just want to ask the artist really quickly. Hey, Maya, where are you?
I'm here. Hi.
Hi. So are you saying one should turn the stuff over with the rice on it?
Yeah, because it's like the rice is on the outside. I don't know.
Oh, that kind.
Yeah.
So do people actually do this?
Yeah, I've made sushi before and that's how I do it. So
And doesn't the rice stick all over the
no,
stone?
well you get like sushi rice. So like it's
So
sticky.
it's sticky. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's sticky.
Actually, my daughter makes sushi all the time, so I knew a little bit about this stuff, but not the kind with the rice on the outside. So I like this, right? You don't have to make any changes. I just want to make sure that it wasn't a miscommunication. Right? It's a big theme.
Oh, I have a question about it though, actually.
Yeah.
Do you think in the first panel I should like put the ingredients, or do you like it as it is?
That's a good question. You know, what you're doing here in number 5 is kind of letting me guess a little bit about what those ingredients are. You know, as a diehard vegetarian, I saw avocado, but recognizing the color beneath it, I also saw salmon. And you know, I guess with sushi, it's okay to leave that a little open, right? That's the fun thing with it. You know, people put all kinds of things in there. So I don't think you have to lay that out. In a weird way, it almost gets too expected. So if you have the luxury where your particular process doesn't demand laying out the ingredients, it's kind of good to let that idea go. You know, a lot of people's processes require that, you know, so they, you know, but I think in your case, you're right. Let's see, you know, what else you might do. So it's a pretty airy design, but there aren't really proper margins. So these numbers here would get cut off if printed on a regular kind of, you know, middle end, lower end printer. So you might want to move things closer. And to be honest with you, I do feel like they're a little too far apart anyway. And these numbers here kind of float equally between 2 steps, which is a little weird. So I don't know, I might bring the numbers just a little bit to the right so that it's very clear and they're not swimming in empty space. Also, if you're gonna number them, which is okay with me, just make sure that you like the font, you know, that you like how bold the number is, the size of the number. I do feel like this one's a bigger problem than this one. I could tell this is a little closer to number 3. This is too far.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Also, all the space between the 2 rows. You know, I like the way you space. I don't want you to get ultra tight or anything like that. But I do feel like we could probably do something to bring this up a notch, or maybe it's just a little too much space, or maybe the final product could be larger in some way so the scale isn't so even. You know, what you've got going for yourself is a lot of elegance and clarity, plus, but it is rather even. So the impact is a little lower than this particular project deserves. So I think, you know, you got a creative mind. It's obvious from the work. Can I just quick one? Oh, these are chopsticks. I get it. All right. You're in pretty good shape. So I would just, again, you know, everybody in here, if what you've gotten is pretty good, you probably want to save a copy of it before you do any, you know, work on a duplicate. You know, this way you got one in the bank. You know, I got to say something about this one right off the pint. Audie, can you just wave at me? There you are. This is just beautiful. So that I have more for you, so don't think it's just a completely easy ride. But it's beautiful to look at, isn't it? Some of you guys look so serious. Is art school knocking you out? Gabriella, how are you? I mean,
I'm good.
you're okay? That's okay. You know, artists sometimes look, you know, we're a serious bunch. I laugh a lot, but I'm also very serious. But I just want to say about this one, you know, it's just so much fun to look at. There's part of me that just wants to shut up. So I want to say why I think it's so beautiful, but then I do have advice for Audie. You know, okay, she's got very simple palette. It's a symphony in blue, right? Blue just loves white, you know? So you got blue and white, and you can almost count them. There's the blue background, the blue pencil, the blue of the scissors, and it's pretty much 3 blues and a white, you know, by and large. She also figured out how to make fabulous shadows, you know, on her own, which I didn't teach. It's very sophisticated, as well as how to punch holes in this, which I also didn't teach. So we could ask her how she learned those things. But let's point out something that would have happened in a drawing. Look at the negative space. Look how just beautiful the empty space is. Forget the drawings. Just look at the space around them. You know, the space around it is just beautiful. So seeing negative space is one of the greatest things you can do for yourself. You know something, when I was in art school, I'd walk home from school and I would try to just look out of the corners of my eyes. I didn't want to focus on any object because that's how we learn to see. But as an artist, I wanted to see holes. So the practice I had was to try to see my periphery. I'd walk down the street trying to look at left and right with my eyes straight forward. And it trained me to start seeing space. The shape of space is at the heart of most visual arts. The shape of emptiness. And this one's really got it. And it's also got just a wonderful path that it takes you on as it moves around, even little dashes and things. Here's the thing with me. And Audie, I really wish I could ignore this. Could I follow these instructions? Let me think. So there's drawings, there's scissors. Okay, so all right, so these are tools. It's folded, get that? Folded again. I'm not totally sure that I see that. You know, these kinds of things are hard to do. Yeah. You know, so it is very, very complicated. You know, look, so Audie, I want to be very blunt with you. If you do make any changes, please save a copy of this one. You know, in the end, if you make changes, be honest with yourself, give me the one you think is best. It's beautiful, very professional. It's a little complicated. You know, so we're actually going to publish this, you know, in a book of how to do paper crafts. We would have to clarify this quite a bit, you know, so your audience could actually do what you're asking them to do, you know. It's too beautiful for me to talk it down though, so it's going to get a very high grade either which way. But I do have to say, if this was a commercial project and you were being paid, that would be the critical thing. Can someone actually follow the instructions? She would have an argument, which is, if we were printing it though, couldn't I add text to help? Why did I bring that up? Anyway, I'm going to move forward. I think it's beautiful, so I'm pretty excited any which way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You know, this is such a nice page, you know, but, you know, first off, let me say what I like about it. You know, it's just a really interesting attitude about color. For a moment, if you would just focus on those greenish colors, you know, so there looks to me at first glance like there's three of them. There's a pale version of the color as the background. There's the darkest version where it says curly hair routine. And then there is a medium version for the smaller bits of text and for the borders, all the borders, the whole page, the circles themselves, right? So it's mostly those three colors. But then of course we get this sort of magenta hair and the brown for the person as well as for the products, right? So it's a very selective portrait. Also, the artist has got a really nice feel for space. Don't really want to move anything, a little bit. So let's talk about space for a minute. I love it. I think the top's very confident. The only problem is down here, the text is almost hitting the row on the top, right? So that's a bit of a problem, right? So I'm going to leave it to Carly to figure out how to solve that because she's obviously very capable. You know, there are solutions, you know, but I'd have to try them to see which one is best. For example, if this moved up, the headline, I do like the headspace over it. But if it did move up a little bit, or maybe got a little bit smaller, maybe this whole row could move up. And so these wouldn't be crowded. You know, there's no room to move these down. They're very close to the bottom as it is. You know, a little bit too close. But I could live with it if they weren't crowding the top row. So this row would have to move up. Other people would say, just make them all smaller. But I don't really think that's a good idea. Carly, where are you? There you are. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really want to make the ovals smaller. They look good like that, you know? So then you're just gonna have to move other stuff to make room for them. But you know, here's the thing. So I told you everything I like. I told you some simple things I'd like to change. But I have to admit, there's something else on my mind. I wouldn't understand condition if it didn't say condition. Detangle, that's a little bit clearer, but it looks a lot like apply product. So, you know, the problem that I have with it is a clarity issue, you know. It's almost like the drawings are not helping a hell of a lot other than keeping me entertained. Shampoo is super clear and also really interesting. Diffuse, which looks like running a pick, you know, or a comb through the hair, is also pretty interesting. And I think any one of these three are interesting, but the three of them are just too similar. This one almost comes as a relief, you know, because it's the most different one on the page. So I really think that if you wanted to upgrade this, you got the look, very professional feeling, but the communication issue is a little iffy because the drawings are there almost like because it's an assignment, but they're not really saying a hell of a lot about what's going on. So I don't know. You know, if you could think of a way to kind of upgrade that a little bit from the communication standpoint, the design and the drawing and all is already working great. So, yeah. You know, I got to say something about this. You know, one thing that's kind of rough about art school is, boy, if we did the same projects twice, you know, it'd be very, very boring. But you know what to do the second time. You'd be like, oh, you know, I think that the process I chose is too repetitive, so it was hard to make the drawings interesting. You know, and then you'd say, okay, I guess I need a process that's more varied. You know, but you know, how could you know that the first time? You know, really, like, you know, all hair stuff is so similar. You know, like with makeup, at least all the kinds of makeup are so different. You know, what someone does with their eyelash is so different than lipstick. So I don't know. You'll have to find a way to make it interesting. You know, and I'm pretty confident you will, based on what I've seen of your work already.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh yeah, Christine, you know, yours was one of those that is like kind of mysteriously overly large. I don't know what caused it, and I don't really want to talk about that today because we have more important stuff. So I'm pretty sure I made a PDF for you earlier today. There it is. So that one's going to open. you know, we could spend the whole semester talking about technology issues, but it's art, you know, and technology is going to change and solutions are varied. So we'll do a lot of that. But today we really do have to start just talking about the art of it. Let's give this a moment. There we go. So, you know, how to paint a landscape. You know, so we've got the canvas, we've got some tools, you know, the tools that you'd expect a painter to have, and then the artist starts with the sky. They're adding the mountains, they add the house, they add the sun, they add clouds, they add some birds, and then there's the finished product. So, you know, it's kind of fun. You know, but I'll have to admit, it does leave me with a bit of an itch, you know, to argue that this is a process. You know, they got a good argument. You know, it's just, I'm not really sure how interesting it is. It's just more like shots of stages. It's not really about the technique of making it. So I'm a little nervous about it. I have to be fair though. I was in a restaurant and I noticed they had 3 of the same painting on the wall, right? And it was a house by a tree by a river, except the second painting didn't have the tree and the third painting didn't have the river. What that means is it was production painting. There was a team, and one day the tree painter was out. He was out sick. So they did the rest of the painting. Tree guy wasn't there. You know, it's funny, you know those paintings that sell for like $50 or less? You know, people making hundreds of that painting. You know, it goes from one person to the next, they paint the next part, you know. So it's a little bit like that, and the artist has an argument. But again, if I'm a little nervous. I might have been happier if you showed me how to mix the green in a frame before the hills were made, for example, or, you know, different elements of it, like, you know, the stuff in the jar. Is it water? Is it oil? And, you know, is it mixed with the paint? I don't know. There's not enough of the process here. The look is kind of fun, even though the picture frame's rather thick, so it's a little confusing. I like a lot about it. It feels a little light, you know. So I don't know, Christine. I do like it. I would like you to figure out a way to take this a notch up. You know, I think you can. Right now, it's kind of a little safe, and so the eye's not as interested if things are a bit too safe. And I'm not sure what I learned from it about the step. You know, anyone out there's like, okay, painters paint one thing at a time. You know, everybody already knows that though. So I don't know. You could think about what you could tell me more about painting, and can you show it to me somehow? You know, maybe like about mixing paint. All right, give me a second here. You know, this is just crazy strong. You know, really, isn't it impressive? You know, and you know, if you think about it, it's like some of the drawings are much more simple than they might look to you because it's so accomplished. You know, but if you look at the dog, you know, it's just a couple of, you know, shapes for one. You know, the dog's made of 3 colors, for example. It's, you know, it's just, you know, very interesting stylistically, the way you know, Andrew thinks when he draws. Even the brush, which looks complicated, isn't as complicated as you think. I do feel like a lot of you are going to feel more open to smooth lines like Andrew gets when we do more pencil. You know, so today I want to do more pencil. I think some of you are going to have a revelation and be like, oh my God, this is what I needed. So we'll see how you feel about that. I do want to keep repeating the use of the pen tool. I also like to squeeze in a little bit more pencil tool if I can to help you get smoother lines out of that. But let me get back to Andrew's work. Look at frame 1. He chose to put the brush on the same angle as the back of the dog. You know, he could have put it horizontally like it was lying on a table, or upright, just like here's my thing, but he used it as a design element. He used everything as a design element. So look at the negative space between the dog and the brush. Interesting space that is. And the dog points right. We follow his snout right over here. And we see this beautiful old-fashioned bathtub. He could have drawn any bathtub, but chose this bathtub. And this bathtub had the virtue of the shower head which actually activates all this space over the bathtub. So it's pretty interesting shape going on around the bathtub because of this weird part of it. And even the bottom with the little legs and a very simple shadow keeps this frame very interesting. And I'm heading right, very strong horizontal. And notice how the dog faces left this time, right? He doesn't want to take us out of the page just yet, right? We're not done. And what's more, the shower head is on a diagonal, which takes me way down here. Didn't have to number them, didn't give me an arrow. The graphics are taking me around. So there's the dog again, pointing right. By the way, about negative space, look at the space between this dog and this one. I know they're in different frames, but it still counts. Look at that space. Cartoonists know all about this, and graphic novelists. Cartoonists and graphic novelists love the way the different frames affect each other. Beautiful. I also like how the hairdryer is higher up here, so it doesn't get too even. And then we come along and the happy dog is rewarded with a bone. Where are you, Andrew? Wow, that rocks. Well done. You know, I don't have an edit for you. You know, the distribution's confident, the color's confident, the shapes are very, very strong. I got a question. I might have asked you last week. Do you have history with Adobe Illustrator? No?
I was introduced to it in high school, but I didn't really use it that much.
So you're saying you learned most of it, you're learning it now mostly?
Yeah, but like I'm used to the pen tool in Photoshop.
Ah, so this is all pen tool.
Yeah.
I suspected that. So some of you are like, oh, okay, that's why he's rocking. No, he's rocking because he's got vision, but he is using the right tool. So congratulations. Guys, everybody, be patient with yourself, right? We got to compound this. You know, don't convince yourself that you should be scoring A all the time. You should be reaching all the time, but you're going to have to be patient. You know, imagine like my family were crazy about these baking shows. I know it's silly, but the British Bake Off. It's better than a beer. It really calms you down. But like, I know I can't bake like those people. I know that. And if I got in the kitchen and even tried, I'd have to be very humble. It would take a while. All right. That's funny. Carly's got her own way of calming down. No, I'm just kidding. You know, I want to point something out, a couple of things she did that I quite like, a couple of things I'd perhaps like to see changed. I really like the idea of having this one object overlapping frames. Again, it's a lot like cartoonists and graphic novelists. You know, Carly, I want to show you something. I'm going to come right back to yours, but I want to show Carly something. I want to show you all something. There's going to be a short detour. I do more of this during the actual critiques, but I do want to give you a peek at something even today. I'm going to have to make it kind of short, though. Just give me a second. Show you something, provided it lets me. Come on. There we go. Aha. I want to show you a couple things. The original Little Nemo and Slumberland, not the Walt Disney version, the original one by a guy named Windsor Mckay. Windsor Mckay was one of the world's first cartoonists. It's an American art form. And this is a little blurry, so it's a little hard to make my point. But you might notice how exciting the different frames are. Where he repeats, these are extra tall. Notice how these plants move from one frame and come all the way around. Look at this rhythm. It's like a big arc, even though these are 5 different frames. This guy was a genius, really. His name is Windsor Mckay. There's his name right there, Windsor Mckay. He is really worth looking at. You know, he was also the first animator before Walt Disney. So the guy was, you know, clearly a genius. But the way he arranged his frames are just utterly brilliant. And I think people have been learning from him for all these years. All right. Open that up again. All right, so that's kind of fun. I do want to say the drawing of the glass itself, this like, margarita glass, is kind of beautiful. It's so simple. I'm not even sure why these lines on the inside work so well, but they really do. It's incredibly elegant glass. So that sort of set a standard for the rest of the page. This glass, for example, really needs the back of the oval. It just feels very, very weird on an otherwise elegant page. And you have a whole week, so I'm not really worried about it. But that glass really has to be completed. This one I'd consider making larger so it's a little bit clearer what's going on and not a collision of these three boxes. I like the idea, but I definitely think this would have to be bolder in some way. Larger, thicker line, or I don't know how. But some of my favorite frames, I definitely like the bottom row the best, this upside down glass where it's being, going to be turned around in the salt. It makes a beautiful image, gorgeous negative space around it. It creates a negative space between these two frames. It's sort of beautiful right in here, that empty space. And again, it keeps doing that because this glass is such an interesting shape. It just keeps producing beautiful negative shapes around it. Beautiful little line over there. It's interesting, Carly, what you chose. Carly, again, where are you one more time? Oh, there you are. Hey, wait a second. Where are you again? Can you wave at me? There you are. Carly, you made interesting choices about what has a stroke around it and what doesn't, and what uses prominent fill colors and what doesn't. I just want everyone to just kind of notice that these ingredients don't have strokes. And she let the color do the work. So it's kind of daring. The only thing I want to say to you, Carly, if you're going to make that decision where some objects have strokes and some objects do not, you're going to have to be very tough that really makes sense. Right now, there's something weird about it, and I can't put my finger on what it is. The line without strokes looks so great in front of the glass, but then you start going back and forth. And I know some of the arguments are like, well, I really kind of had to put strokes on the things with the black and white gradients because the page is white and I wouldn't see the edges of those things. And if that's your argument, then I'd just give up the white page. Or maybe these do need strokes. I don't know. Right now, that strategy, stroke outline or no stroke, isn't crystal clear yet. I'm glad that you're playing with the idea. The other thing I'd like to say, if these objects are going to be this small, right, they're smaller than the glass, you'd have to move them back in space so they feel like they're far enough back to be small. Right now, they feel like they magically shrunk because they're all on the same bottom, like they're sitting parallel to each other, and these suddenly got very tiny, So you'd either have to scale them up, which then I could see why you didn't want to do that, or make them feel like they're behind the starring elements. So I just want to say, here you've got a beautiful bottom row, needs a little bit of correction maybe around here. We'll see if this space, continues to work. Maybe this could be moved over. What is this object here? Oh, it's the top of the jar. So again, if you want to make use of that, that might have to be clearer, or you could delete it because it's not important once it comes off. Then you'd still have to figure out what to do with this space. This is what I'd like to say about this. Just to be a little bit simpler, it's clear what the assets are. That killer glass, the shapes that it makes, right? What's left to work out is all the emptiness really working in your favor? Do the boxes want color? Maybe around the boxes there should be color. There's something kind of missing. That the space still needs to be worked with. But your ingredients are all here, and I don't mean to make the margarita. I mean to make the project. There's so much here that could easily become an A project, but it looks like a real good draft. There's more to do, more itches to scratch. Let me just get a peek here, see how I'm doing. I think I'm taking a little bit too long. I do have to save. Let's see, how much time do I have to save? Let me think about this for a minute. We end at 12. Yeah, I think we're okay. This feels and looks very different than the others, right? It's screamingly digital. The artist is having fun, actually kind of exaggerating the computerness of it. The font of the numbers here really points that out. It's bitmapped font that has that retro computer kind of vibe. Before I go any further though, Julia, I do want to say something right off the top about those numbers. Julia, where are you? Help me. The numbers are kind of large. I think the whole image is very strong. It's a little bit crowded. So the first thing I'm looking for is like, what's crowded about it, and is there easy solutions? So I don't think the numbers need to be that big. You're only using them for two reasons, right? One, you felt the need to take us on a numerical path, go in this order. That's the one reason. The other reason is you were having fun with the exaggerated digital font. So it's about printing and all of that. But that's not enough of a reason to make them that big. I think the whole thing will feel quite a bit better once they're half the size. Similarly, I think the circles are kind of crowding each other. It's a very delicate game, how much space you want, and there's no easy answer because sometimes empty is really good. To be honest, if I was going to draw someone being lonely, I'd make them really small on a big empty page. Yeah, Levi, you want to turn your mic on? I'm going to unmute you. Levi, could you unmute yourself? Yes.
Yeah.
What were you telling us?
No.
Oh, you're talking to somebody else?
I just talk to myself.
Oh,
Sorry.
that's another artist thing. Let's admit it. I've heard artists talk to themselves plenty. I'm fabulous. I suck. I'm pretty good. No, I'm kidding. I want to come back to this. So I do think in this case, it's very strong, but the crowdedness is a little oppressive. So I would make some room between these things. It might require that each of these ovals are a little smaller than they are so that they're not really jostling each other to that degree. So, but on the positive side, and there's a lot that's positive of this, I love the bold, very straightforward drawing style. It's even telling us to turn on the computer. Why the left edge of the computer is practically touching the printer. So Julia, I got to say something to you. I lost you. There you are. I love your drawing, really. I think what you need to concentrate on for a little while is emptiness. Where does the emptiness go? You know what I mean? It's like, if let's say you have beautiful objects and you lay them all out and they're all too close to each other, no one can appreciate them. This is true if you put objects on a table as it is anywhere else. If they're too far apart, maybe that doesn't work. So what's the magic amount of space? So for example, though, this definitely should not be touching because it's making the computer, which is supposed to be in front of the printer. I know it's to the right, but since they share a line, it's flattening out a little too much. So they need to be moved apart. So one or the other might have to be smaller. And then we move over already on the screen, a kind of fun rendition of the screen and the logos. I love that she's talking about Illustrator here. That cracks me up. Very convincing. I mean, really nice drawing going on here, right? And then we're focusing on the printer, and it looks like we're clicking on a printer icon because we've got the very large cursor. And then the print's starting to come out, and then we're showing finished product. I love this process. I love this idea. And frankly, I just want to be very clear to you. I don't think there's really any redrawing to do. It's just mostly resizing, and moving things. It's one of my favorite parts of doing this kind of stuff. Because like, oh, the hard stuff's done. Now a little party happens as I see how it gets better just by moving things and changing their size. So, we've got some really beautiful stuff here, there's a couple of things I'm a little less sure of, but my first reaction is just kind of pleasure. Give me a second. It looks like someone must have got locked out. All right, there she goes. for one, look at this beautiful shape. All by itself, it's kind of gorgeous. But I just love the way it works with those little circles and this oval object here. Uh, it's just kind of beautiful. And it really does take me for a visual ride. And there's a lot of flowing going on here. I mean, look, we're not talking about the process right now, just the look and feel. If you look at this tea kettle, it also creates a very musical kind of movement with the drawing beneath it. There's a very kind of dancerly musical arrangement that you just see in many, many ways. There's all kinds of flows going on, which I think is very, very positive. It's interesting the artist chose to go with very bold black and white. I want to back up a little bit and make sure, though, that I know what's going on. Something is being scooped into a container, but I'm really not sure which container it is. It looks like this here is a measuring container, and this over here is not the same one. It's something I drink from. So it looks to me, and I could be wrong, and I don't even want Leah to tell me yet. I want her to see what the confusion might be for a blind audience, not a blind audience, for an audience who can't hear her explanation. So I'm thinking this is one, like a drinking glass, and then this is a measuring glass. So this one gets repeated once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. The drinking glass then is the first and last. So I'm a little confused by that, especially because how would someone put this glass down? It's interesting to me. It's a beautiful shape, and I don't even mind that a hell of a lot. I'm willing to give her that. The shape's so beautiful. Maybe it's okay that it's that round on the bottom. I don't know. But let me see if I understand it. Something's being poured into a glass, and then something else is being poured into a measuring glass. Is it a black liquid? One has to ask. A certain amount is poured in, and then it looks like sugar is going to be added. That it looks like it was measured first and poured in. This is a beautiful frame by itself. In fact, they're all beautiful frames by themselves, each one. And it's a beautiful page. I'm just questioning whether I understand it. So now the liquid's in there, the sugar's in there, and it gets shaken. Very nice way of describing shaking. And then, okay, now it gets poured into the first glass that had the little circles in it. It's opened up, and then there's a finished product. So I got to ask Leah, because now I have to know. Leah, where are you? Could you wave at me? Is she not here?
I'm here. It's just my
Oh, you are?
camera.
Oh,
Sorry.
you're all right. You warned me already, Leah. Don't worry about that. Our camera's
Yeah.
misbehaving. What is this drink?
It's milk tea, like bubble milk tea. It's a really popular Asian drink.
Yeah, I've heard about it. I never had any,
Yeah.
bubble tea.
Yeah, when I first saw this picture, I know it's bubble milk green tea.
Yeah.
So, Leah, I love your drawing, and I love the simplicity of it and its visual clarity. I'm not sure that the conceptual clarity is all there, because I really struggled with it. And as a visual guy, first I was like, gee whiz, do I like looking at this? So that's a big thumbs up. But is there any way you can make it clearer? That's really the big question. And are you still feeling the empty white page, or do you feel like it needs something additional structural? I got to say, it's not like I'm asking you to put frames around them, because that could be better, but it could be worse. But it's all swimming in space right now. So as much as I love the drawing, if there's some way, you tried to anchor it with those blacks, which helped a lot, but I think it needs to somehow be anchored and clarified a little bit more. Leah, I got to tell you, that is not clear advice from your teacher, but it's art. So sometimes it's just, I want to mention something to you specifically and to everybody. So I had a favorite teacher in college, and I wound up taking everything the guy taught, and then I studied with him privately at his studio for a year after college. But he would give me advice sometimes that was the weirdest advice ever. He'd look at my work, he'd point at a little part, and he'd go like this. He'd point out this little part, and he'd go, He wouldn't even do it with words, and then I'd be like, we had a nonverbal communication. He was feeling stuff and communicating the feeling to me as someone much older, and he was letting me know, you have to go in this area and feel more, try more, experiment more. So I got to say, I really like a lot about this one. I could easily just say, you know, it's done, but I think you could make it better. I don't know. Should one of these be larger than the others? You know, between them all being so even and there not being any frame, all that white space, it's very elegant, but still a little bit more of an anchor somehow and a little more clarity would be great.
I have a question.
Ask, yes.
Yeah, so the third process thing, the top right
Mm-hmm.
one,
Yes.
it's actually ice cubes, sugar, and creamer. And I know it's not clear.
Oh, that's
So
easy to fix. They're way too small to look like ice cubes.
yeah.
Yeah, change the
Okay.
scale.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a beautiful drawing, by the way. That one in the top right. It's good. It really, each of these is good enough to stand by itself. They're really kind of beautiful. The page needs a little bit more, but about clarity, yeah. Just make those little rectangles, those little squares much larger.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then can I like label the sugar and creamer? Because not many people will.
You know, you can. I think yours
Okay.
is clear enough. I want to tell you something. I don't want people labeling stuff as a cop-out.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, like I don't want somebody who, you know, doesn't want to draw a mouth, so they write eat. You know, that's not going to work for me. But you know, if you're doing 90% of the work visually, you need a little extra shove with text. I'm fine with it. Listen, I want to say one more thing to you, Leah. If the bigger squares don't make it look like ice, you're going to have to look at some ice cubes. Ice cubes are really hard to draw.
Okay.
I've had students do it, but it makes me shudder personally. You know, they're like not an easy thing to communicate. So see if it works bigger and then see if you need to add a little something to make it feel like ice.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Listen, guys, I know critiques take forever. And I'm so glad I watched this comedian making fun of art teachers the other day. I was crying from it. It was so funny. And I was like, oh my God, that's me. But I really am giving you heartfelt responses. I'm not saying anything to you that I don't completely mean, right? So, you know, these drawings are so much fun, and I really like what the artist's doing, but I have to ask a question because the style is so unusual. Robin, where are you?
I'm here.
Robin, those are all drawn in Illustrator? You know, isn't that fascinating? They just don't look anything like Illustrator artwork. So I want to say something to you and to everybody. You know what's going to happen a year from now? For one, most of you are going to fall in love with Illustrator by the end of the semester. It's a highly addictive program. Some of you are going to start to experiment with strange ways of using it that I've never seen, or you've never seen, and make discoveries that satisfy you. This feels so much like pen and ink wash drawings that like it, and if it was going to be on a computer, they look a little more like maybe Photoshop. So Robin, I really got to give you a thumbs up for like making these discoveries on your own. It's just got a different feel I'm not even used to seeing. So I was like, wow, did she cheat? No, she didn't. You know, she didn't. She just did something brilliant. So okay, you know, hey, so I was like in a like a secondhand shop trying to find an old record. And this young person's working in the shop. I said to them, hey, I need a record player. Do you have one? He goes, what's a record player? I felt so old. Oh my God. Maybe really, I mean, maybe you never saw someone, you know, do that with a record player. Anyway, so she's got the record. Record's coming out. It's showing us now very clearly. It's out of the sleeve. It's going onto the turntable. Here, I guess the volume is being cranked up. This is showing you that the needle is coming down. At least that's the way I'm interpreting it. And then the music is actually playing. So I want to say a couple things. Drawings look great. And frankly, you're taking some big liberties with scale, how big things are. And I'm kind of okay with it because it feels really nervy. But just for the record, you might say, I'm not afraid of a terrible pun. This record would have to be significantly larger because it's in front of the rest of it. You know, it'd be popping out. Since, the record player is a few inches behind the sleeve, right? It's being pulled out of the sleeve. So it makes it feel really, really small. Remember, space really does change the size of things, right? Even a couple of inches change the size of things a lot. So I don't know, this is a starring moment. Also I'm a little afraid of it just being that even. Each of the 6 steps the same size. Like if one of them was just significantly larger, this whole page would really come to life. And if I had the time, which I don't, I would probably take these 2, bring them a little closer to each other, and then make that unit big enough to own this space here. So the steps could be around it. The record's the star. That would be really cool. Also, I see what you're doing with these wedge shapes in the background, but I just don't think they're working in your favor. It comes off as just decorative and not decorative with a purpose. Decorative is fine. It really, really is. But really, when it comes to communication art and communication design, even the decorative elements need to communicate. So I'd probably get rid of those. I think if you make this larger, you'll see how that affects the design. You'll see if you need anything else to bring the page to life. Center
Right.
drawings are great. The design's pretty good. I love how this one's lower. Please give me something at the end of that thing so I know there's a needle there. It looks like a chopstick. So just like fix that one little thing. I'd like this little V going on. So we just need a little more variety in terms of placement and scale.
Okay.
Bring it to
I
life.
made the background decorations like that because I didn't want all the different pieces to get lost in the paper
Mhm.
in a sense. So I
Again,
guess
that's
changing
about,
scale would help.
that's really about how much space is between them and when and where. This is a lot of space. These things are never going to be confused for each other. The only one that might ever stand an issue is these because they're the only place where 2 objects don't touch. So it's like if they're just close enough, that's fine. But don't give me so much space that the space is overwhelming and you feel like you have to decorate it. So I think right now there's probably just a little bit too much space. The other thing I'd suggest is try a few different colors for the background. This might be the best, but it might not. And if you know how to make a blend, try that too. See if a blended color, a gradient, might really bring it to life. So there's a lot of great stuff on this one. I'm really kind of excited to see what comes next. So, we usually break by now. I want to take a quick peek and see if that's possible. Today's a little tight, but you guys definitely need a break. So let me just see where I'm at. Ooh, interesting. I'm going to actually back out of this for a second. Maya, I'm not going to skip you. I just want to see where I'm at. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. So it looks like we did about 15 people. We've got 10 to go. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to call a very short break today. Please don't hate me. I know some of you need a real break or possibly a nap. But I'm going to have to make this really, really short. I just don't want to deprive you of these techniques that I think you're all going to want. So let's just make it a 10-minute break. At least we're home, most of us, I think, right? So it's 10:30 now. Be sure to be back at 10:40. We're going to hit the ground running, right? So I've taken attendance. I am going to turn myself off for 10 minutes. All right, everybody? Be back at 10:40 sharp.
Yes.
All right. So I also have to step out for a minute. I think I'll leave my video on. Hello again. I want to get right back talking about the work. Somebody wanted to know where that TikTok video was. So I just went to ask my daughter. She, the artist, about your average age too. I don't know what art school he's in, but he's called Ghost Honey, and very popular TikTok guy called Ghost Honey. I added it to the chat over there. I'm not saying it's great art, it just made me laugh because it's our world he was making fun of. Okay, everybody froze. Are you, am I frozen? Oh, what's going on here? Oh, we're back. We all froze for a moment there. I'm kidding. I didn't freeze there. I was just playing. All right, is everybody here? Can you all hear me?
Yeah, I
Someone
can
let
hear
me
you.
know.
Yes.
Okay, the internet's acting a little funky right now. So, it looks like Carly found the video. Guys, listen, please don't go watching the video now. You could, mark the link or something. But let me get right back to the critique. So I hope everybody's in the room. I want to make sure that nobody misses any of this. Because there's either a lot of cameras are off or people are late. I'm going to delay 1 minute because it was a short break. Seems only fair. I see a couple more cameras coming on. While I'm giving people that 1 minute, extra minute to make it back to class. Oh. I just want to say something kind of quickly. When it comes to critiques, everybody is looking forward to, I think I'm frozen again. I'm not sure what is going on, why this is, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You
Yes.
can hear me, why? Do you notice how everybody's, is this, maybe it's just on my end, but everybody seems to be freezing.
We can hear you and
Folks,
see you.
you can? If
Yeah.
if
You're not breaking up
if the
or anything.
audio starts going in and out or I freeze a lot, try to let me know, so
We
I
will.
can back up a little bit. Okay. So I just want to mention about the critiques. Most people are interested when their work is being talked about, but the wisest people are interested in everybody's work because this is the only chance in your life you're really going to have that opportunity, and it's going to matter for a long time. I'm going to go right back to screen sharing. Okay. And we get right back inside. All right. I don't know about you, but on my computer, everybody's appearing and disappearing. We're going back and forth. Do you guys have a solid connection? It could just be my house. Carly, are you there? I'm just picking someone at random who's frozen.
Yes, I'm here.
You are there? Yeah, I don't know. So maybe it's on my end. Okay, so please keep me posted. I'm going to assume you guys have a good connection unless I hear otherwise. All right. Let's see, where was I? I lost a little bit of track. Did we, a minute. All right, we just did this one, I think.
You just finished critiquing mine.
Okay, yeah, great, that's helpful. Things are getting a little wonky on my end, so I'm having to reopen it. So Robin, you're saying we just did yours?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Okay, great, thank you. Oh, yes. I apologize for the tech delays. It always breaks our momentum up quite a bit. Sometimes I saw a teacher the other day just had to stop the class because their internet connection was so bad. All right. All right, so we've got more hair care here. And you know, you would expect me to repeat myself because we've seen others with hair care. And I just want to say something to you. Um, the rules keep changing. It's art, right? So even if I'm giving someone some advice and the next person thinks, oh, that's me also, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Because this one's got a lot of repetition, right? And the question becomes, is it working in the artist's favor or not? So before I go any further, I have to see what's going on with the internet connection because everyone's disappeared. Give me 1 second. Uh, Folks, everyone's going in and out. Please be patient. I have to figure out a solution quickly. Folks, if you can hear me, I am going to reset the internet on my end to see if I'm the one causing the trouble. But literally everyone has disappeared except for a couple of people. Great, Audie. I'm glad you can hear me. Those of you who can hear me, could you use the reactions because most of you have gone invisible. So the reactions feature should be on that little control bar. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me or anything like that. Ah, so you could
hear
all
our
hear me.
mics?
I could hear you too. I just can only see 3 people.
It's weird.
Maybe people have turned their cameras off. Is that possible? I see most of you hear me fine. So if your camera's off, please turn it on. I know I have one person whose camera's misbehaving, but everybody else, please make sure your camera's on. Folks, I am going to leave the room for 3 minutes. I am going to reset the internet here because it's very disorienting not being able to see you. Don't go anywhere. Just give me a moment and I'll be right back.
think it made me the host.
I think it's hilarious how it's still recording.
Yeah.
Power moves, Adi.
How'd you gain that power? Oh my god.
I don't know. The second he left, it was like, you're now host. And then when Elsa tried to come in from the waiting room, I clicked admit and then she came in.
That happened to me once with Jada's classroom, and I just had like unlimited power of like allowing people in.
Since it's recording, we can say hi to Ira for the YouTube video.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
If you're watching this, then you're doing good.
I think he's back.
I think so.
Did you all get cut off?
We can hear you. Can you see
You're
it?
all coming back now.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm starting to see you now. I'm sorry about that. You know, the other day, my daughter had a class, and the teacher's internet connection went so bad she had to cancel class. They were like 20 minutes in and could not fix it. But at least mine is back now. I'm hoping you can all see me. I see almost everybody. I'm going to move ahead. Folks, those of you who use the chat feature a lot, just give me a heads up if somebody's having a big problem and they need my attention. Because right now I'm going to get back to critiquing. All right? Oh, this is one of those weird days. People are freezing again. So much guesswork in this stuff when I don't know what's going on. Teacher sounding very repetitive. Are you guys still hearing me? No? Yes? Thanks.
We can hear you. I can.
All right. I'm going to move forward. Again, you know, you could support each other via chat if necessary, and someone will let me know if things have gone south. Right? I'm going to jump right back in. Hope for the best. All right. Give me a second here. All right. All right, I'm sharing my screen one more time. And here we go. All right, let's get back to it. You know, I like the feel of this one a lot. Those couple of colors are working very well. It's a very selective palette. The head is nicely drawn. Some of the frames are particularly nicely drawn. I'm wondering what more we need. There's two issues at hand. It's got a great start. There's a lot of good stuff here. I particularly like how there's no stroke because the white looks so good against the pink and the blues also. So the outlines wouldn't have helped this one. The artist saw that, which is nice. But I'm a little unsure about two things. First, I want to make sure I understand everything. So the hair looks like it's shampooed first, then the person's in the shower. So I'm a little confused by that. I mean, maybe that happens in hair care. Maybe you do that to your hair for deep conditioning, and then showered, and then towel, some kind of thing on the head to dry it. Then there's the hair dryer to take it further, and a hair clip going in, and then there's the hair. This makes a reasonable amount of sense. The biggest issue it has in that case then is all that empty space. So it's a subject that keeps coming back. You know, when is space good and when is it not good? I'm going to check the chat because I'm feeling rather insecure that this is all working out. Give me a second. A little frustrating.
I can hear you and see you.
Yeah, we can all see each other, but I don't think you
Okay.
can see us.
So the problem must just be at my house. God knows, maybe Verizon is working on my line or something. So I'm going to assume you're all good and just move forward unless I hear otherwise. So I just want to talk directly to Maya for a minute. I would ask you to wave, but I can't see you. I apologize for that. But I can hear you when you turn your mic on. There's a lot of empty space that I don't think is helping the artist. When I approve of empty space, it's because it turns into a useful negative space. But in this case, it just feels like loads and loads of room. And the artist wanted to make use of the entire page, so I understand why they spread them out. But still, if the space isn't working, they may need to be moved in. Could these, say, let's call these columns, could the columns be moved a little closer together so that the shapes between them can have some kind of chemical reaction? And if the artist did move them a little closer together, would the outside still work, or would the artist need one more element? So this is what I want to say to you, Maya. You've got good elements. It's pretty clearly communicated, rather nicely drawn. The colors are nice. You've got a lot going for you. It's going to take some different kind of design thinking then to make this more interesting. You know, one thing that would be daring, I don't know if it's possible, would be to choose the 5 steps, take the 5 steps and somehow make them work as a unit, and then make the last step, the finished product, bigger. You know, maybe she could own the whole side of the page. This is what happens at the end of good hair care. You know, you look fabulous like this, right? So maybe all the evenness isn't working, or the empty space. It's a design issue. You got the drawings, you got the communication, but we need a little bit more on the design side. Maya, do you hear me? You
Yes, I do.
specifically?
I do.
Great. So again, there's a lot of potential there. I kind of expect this to be quite a bit better next week without a hell of a lot of drawing, really. Just, you know, rearranging for the sake of higher impact. All right, open this up a little bit. All right, we've got a very, very bold, you know, bluntly graphic design kind of style. I really quite like the frame with the toothpaste tube and the toothpaste being handled almost like an aerial view. So they're just facing us. It's making a very angular and kind of exciting negative space between the toothpaste and the toothbrush, which is kind of really nice. And then we get a close-up of the toothbrush. You say to the artist, you can't really close this box on the left side like that because it looks like the brush was suddenly broken in half. But if this was open and this part of the toothbrush came up to the left wall, then I'd know it was just a close-up. You know, it's interesting that the faucet doesn't have that problem, but I think this is a little weird like that. It looks like a different kind of object. I love the frame, though. I really like the degree of close-up. I love the little gleam on the toothpaste. I'm just a little insecure about this one edge. But then we move to the right, and to break things up, we got another tall object. Just notice, tall on the left, tall on the right, short in the middle. That makes some kind of sense. The middle sort of framed. Also, the one on the right is diagonal. It's one of the only diagonals on the page. You know, it's angular. Kind of fun way of describing it, moving back and forth and getting sudsy. Very, very simple. And then we move over here, and there's a clock. There's, you know, just trying to imply, as I see it, that enough brushing has gone on. You know, time has passed. And then it's getting washed, the toothbrush, and we got a gleaming tooth. So I got to say about this one, very clear communication. And Jackson, although I can't see you, could you tell me that you hear me? Just turn your mic on.
Hi. Hi, can you hear me?
Thank you. I'm sorry to be that insecure, but it's pretty
you're all
weird looking at a bunch of black frames. I just want to check that you're okay. So I really like the way you describe the process. I also like the bold drawing style, particularly on the toothbrush, the toothpaste. The clock is, you know, the least interesting, you know, but I think it does its job. The tooth is pretty cool too, but the other 4 frames are pretty fabulous. What I'm less sure of is if the way you framed it is really making it better or not. I do appreciate the kind of adventure. You got the white margin, and you chose to separate the frames with this darker gray. On top, though, there isn't the darker gray, and on the bottom, there isn't the darker gray. You know, once I see that experiment, I'm just not 100% sure that it worked. What I would ask you to do is not mess with the drawings, are very strong, but see what you do with the way they're made. You know, I kind of like the layout a lot. It's just I'm not sure that the 2 grays and the particular shapes are doing the most for the drawings. So I would spend some time playing with that.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you guys. Can you guys hear
I
me?
don't know if you could hear us, but
I think he froze
Yeah,
again.
he froze. Yeah.
No. Hang on a second. Sorry about that. Oh, it was going so smoothly, everybody. Why did it have to get weird?
well, we can hear you now.
What is happening?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Okay, so I like that one a lot. I could tell that it could be much better with simple. Excellent. Oh, no. Did the last artist not hear that critique? Did you all miss the toothbrush one?
Part of it.
Yeah, we missed part of it.
Oh, man. And you know, I love. You did? Oh, man. I'm going to take this computer somewhere else, see if it works better. We're going to take a while. Let's see. I'm going to try it here. Ah, yeah, maybe in here. I'm just going to talk a little lower. Okay. We'll try a different room. Maybe that'll behave, help it behave. I'm gonna back up because it's just not fair to the artist. Jackson, I don't know if you really heard the critique, and I do apologize, but I
You're
like.
all good.
You good? These drawings are terrific. I really like them. They're simple, and you're kind of proving a point about how well simplicity can work. I just don't think the background elements are serving it as well as they could. The bold drawings deserve more out of their background, something to really show them off. Also, I'm a little unsure about the decision to make the top frames open on top and the bottom frames open on bottom. It was a nice experiment. I would have tried it too, but I'm just not sure of it. I would just try other things around the main drawings to see if you could flatter them the most. You know, I want to say something about that idea to you for a minute, to everybody for a minute. If you were playing in a band and you love the singer's voice, you would often think, okay, what can we do to support the singer's voice? You know, the drummer starts playing the cymbals and you're like, you know what? Let's back off the cymbals. It's interfering with the voice. So very often you're figuring out what is the star of your show and what kind of support does it deserve? So I like Jackson's drawings a lot here. And I'm curious to see what he could come up with that might flatter it even more.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Elsa, it's such a nice page. It's got such a kind of quiet flavor to it. And it really does look like a crafts book about how to dry flowers. So here, this kind of beautifully drawn hand is picking these flowers, which are floating on the blue of the page rather nicely. I like that kind of liberal decision. She had a lot of fun taking us to the next image, like we're spinning in the wind. It's just creative and playful. And then we get to the page. It's kind of laid out. These real flowers are laid out. She gave us little shadows so we didn't mistake them for drawings. And then it's kind of folded. And then here's where it gets a little curious. We've got to think openly for a minute. We go down here. Now, in almost everybody's that worked in rows, we went back to the left because that's the habit. When you read left to right, you go down a line, but you start on the left again. This is like a form of reading. So Elsa, where are you? Can you wave at me? I see you again. Hi. Like this page a lot, but the big challenge you have right now is you're swimming upstream by going from right to left. You know, you gave us arrows to make sure, but watch how confused people get anyway, because they've been trained for years to read like that, go to the next line, and even though it's not words, they're going to do it here. So we got to decide whether or not it's actually working. And I'd like to say definitely yes, because I love the path. The folded thing gets tucked in a book. The book is left for one day. And then finally it's ready to come out, flattened flowers and picture frame. beautiful color, nice sense of scale. Notice that this is a little bit bigger than the other objects. This is also big. So there's a, bigger and smaller going around. Very subtle colors going on. I really like this one a lot. It's just a little unsure whether we could actually do this. Elsa, you see what I'm saying, right? So I honestly don't know. There's a big part of me that's going to say, could you rearrange that bottom row and make it as good as this one? Because other than that, we're just going to be fighting with people reading it wrong, even with the arrows, even with the fun arrows. One could argue, does that one arrow need to be more prominent somehow so you just can't miss it? I'm just not sure that that wouldn't be a cop-out. I still think, I love the way, you switch from white to pink like that. I just don't see another solution, really. I could be wrong. But if you think I'm wrong, then you're going to have to make it even more convincing somehow so that no one gets lost. Other than that, I think it's kind of awesome. It looks like it should be published. So we got a lot of hair care going today. This is hair day. So shampooed, combed, dried, double dried, blow dryer, dried, some kind of hair products added. Then we're in a process of styling, and then we arrive at the finished style. One thing I like about this one is, gosh, is that clear? Frankly, I find the hair care ones very difficult to be clear about, like what's really going on. So I'm kind of impressed that it's so clear, even with this like kind of bluntly cartoon style. The other plus for this one, it's very confident in its style, style that it has very sure of itself. I particularly love the way the shampoos handle the sudden use of blue here. The bottle here is given a very different treatment than the rest of it. Not as sure about that. I feel like it should be more cartoony if the rest of the page is. Like the font that's chosen to say hair day. But I want to be, kind of blunt, Natasha. I do feel like, where are you? Oh, I see you.
Hi.
Hi. I do feel like it wants more just to, kind of like what I was saying to Jackson. It's got all these nice parts, but there's something about it that feels like it isn't completely there just yet. And
Yeah.
a couple things, is it about the background? By the way, I'm not saying to complicate the background. That's not my point, but maybe. Maybe not. I kind of like the color of it. So maybe it isn't.
Yeah, like when I was doing this, I had like the concept of like for like a younger audience, because like when they go to like a salon or something, so they understand like what their day will be.
Oh, that's
So,
interesting. That's like a poster at the salon. I
Yeah.
like that idea a lot. But I got to say, just in terms of visual interest, you're struggling with the fact that they're so similar,
Yeah.
So there's got to be some way to excite the page a little bit, which makes me feel like maybe scale is an issue. Is there, could any of these be larger? Would there be any good reason for it being larger? Or
Yeah, I was thinking about like I wanted to redo the last two steps because I want to add like more like childlike accessories and doing the hair again, and like making the last one more bigger as it's like the final thing, like you're done.
Those are good ideas. I would definitely head in that direction. Guys, I want you to imagine something. Imagine we were an agency together, right? I'm the oldest in the room, so I become the art director and you're the artists. There's very little time. So what I'll very often do if someone's working with me is I would say, hey, this is what I like best. This is where I'm hungry. And if we're just moving, I would say, come up with something. Literally, it would be on you. Stretch your imagination. This is what works. This is what isn't as strong. And so I like, Tasha, I like the way you're looking at this. It sounds like you're on a mission and you know where you're headed.
Thank you.
Isn't this interesting? This one really got my attention even this morning when I stole my peek at it. It's a very elegant page. It looks like the artist is in process, and I'm going to talk to the artist, talk to Angel in a moment or two about it, because I have questions, but I do want people to take a quick peek. The first two frames are going with a very refined, clean line, right? And the other 6 frames are going with a very sketchy, kind of confident, very confident, sketchy kind of line. And I got to tell you something. I don't feel very strongly that either style is better than the other because they're so darn strong. The only thing that is pretty clear is that the whole page would have to go one way or the other. I'm imagining, and I am going to actually leap forward for a second and talk to Angel directly. Angel, where are you? I see you. So were you working with sketches and then the first two frames were cleaned up? Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's what happened. I kind of mismanaged my time throughout the week, and I didn't find the time to do the 6 other ones.
Well, listen, don't torture yourself because it's going well. That's mature what you said, so you'll do better with time management. But I'm not too upset, actually. I mean, it's moving in the right direction. And also, I just have to say, it gave me a peek at how you draw naturally. The fact that you're drawing in Illustrator like another person draws with a pen, on paper, is kind of exciting to me. It almost makes me want to show you techniques that you could use for color, but we're just not ready for. I just want to throw an idea at you, though, a little peek forward. Sometimes when someone has a very loose drawing style, I'll ask them to put a layer underneath it. And on the layer underneath it, I'll say make very loose closed shapes. So say a loose closed shape under any of the cats, filled with any color. The layer on top would have that loose drawing. So it gets a little Andy Warhol looking because the color won't match the drawing on top. It's not, click it and fill it. No, it's two separate layers. Loose drawing on top that's line and flat color on a layer underneath. It's a beautiful kind of look. I'm not saying you should do it, but maybe in the future you should do it. On this one, I'm just glad I got a peek at this. These are bold, very nicely chosen amount of space, very, very confident. This too, where he stopped the bathtub for some reason feels natural, doesn't feel like a broken bathtub, lots of air. Beautiful, gesture drawings of the cat being lifted against its will, shampooed, washed, scrubbed. My cat hates this. Here it's shaking itself off, and then it's probably about to lick its paw. You know cats, you know how to draw. I'm excited for you. Since it is, a little early in some ways, I don't have anything brilliant for you, but I love the direction it's going. Whether you're going to introduce color or stick with just line, it's up to you. Just be honest whether it has the impact you want. You surely have the skill and the insight. It's well thought out and well drawn. I gotta say to you, Miles, I love this page as a page, but I tried to figure it out with all my heart this morning and just could not figure it out. This implies that there's going to be folds. Oh, I see. So it gets folded. The reason I didn't understand it is I expected it to be diamond shaped in the third frame, but it looks like it was folded and then turned.
Yeah, do you think it would work better if it was like diamond shaped in the third one?
I definitely do.
Okay.
Miles,
Sounds
where
good.
are you? I see you. Yeah, because I think I would have understood the first two frames. And I also understand that you made it smaller to help us see. It would feel smaller if the corners were folded over. And I guess you have to do that. It's one of those things I wish you didn't have to do because I don't really like them getting smaller graphically. I don't know if there's another solution, but I do agree it would be confusing if you didn't. I don't know.
Yeah, I did that just to help the viewer. I felt like.
Got it. When you turn it, see if you could play with scale in some way that it doesn't feel like it's being reduced by getting smaller. I'm not really sure what that would be. It would take me some play. I definitely agree on turning these diamond wise. All right, so if that's the case, then it gets folded again. See, these look the same.
Yeah, it gets folded twice. That's why I made it even smaller.
I see. So, I guess the other way to handle it is, again, go with diamonds where necessary. It looks like you've got one here anyhow, but maybe you need to exaggerate the scale. Maybe they should be like really significantly larger. So the small ones feel like you're really making a point. I think, maybe they're a little too close. In some way you got to, often we take a challenge that's kind of annoying and turn it into an ally. a graphic ally, some kind of asset. The eye does like seeing changing size if it's big and small, but not if it's big and, like that, so you have to work that out. So, look, in general, I'm not going to go stage by stage. I just want to say that you chose something kind of difficult. The page is beautiful in many, many ways, but as an instruction set, I just don't understand it. I have a lot of confidence in you already and the way you look at this. You seem like you're not easy to scare off. That's going to take you far, my friend. So don't let me scare you off. This is going to have to be clarified so that I have some understanding of what's going on. And it's this fun, this kind of leafy wreath you made about them all, and this sort of, jazzy but quiet background. I don't think it's about any of that. It's really going to be mostly about, can you communicate this stuff? Look, I got to say something to you bluntly. You're getting a thumbs up from me because it shows so much promise. But the decision is yours. If it seems just too difficult to pull off, if you would rather do something else, you can. You're
Okay.
going to be the judge. Okay.
I'll see what I can do with this one first.
All right. All right, what do we've got? We've got ingredients laid out. We've got the aerial view as a jar with a leaf icon on it is pouring the very leaves into the pot. Then it's being stirred, and it looks like something's spreading because the color's changed. So I wish I had a clear understanding about that, like what's causing it, because I only see green and white going into the pot. And then we go further, and a liquid's being poured in, and it's from a tea kettle, so I'm assuming it's something hot. And then we move on, and it looks like this may be hot chocolate or something like that. We're back in the pot. This also has this kind of issue of the flat bottom problem. If you're going to make this oval that round, because we're looking at this, looks terrific, by the way. The top of this is one of my favorite parts of the whole page. It's really convincing looking in the mouth of this pot, but the bottom really has to match that curve because it really looks like it got dented, like you smacked the pot over someone's head. And then over here, we're back to the aerial view, and it looks like milk's being poured in. And then maybe something's being strained. So I think the strainer needs to be worked on. It's got to, I see what it is, but it feels more like an incomplete object. So the artist is going to have to come back and work on that. I do want to say something to you, Lee Y. The last drawing's my absolute favorite. It's got a lot of charisma. It's playful. It's colorful. It is kind of fun that it's also the only one without the background, but it's just something about the drawing's just more sure of itself. The top of this one, as I said, is very satisfying. I think the rest of it, though, it's not either all that interesting or all that clear. So it's going to take some experimentation with a big chunk of it to make it a little bit clearer and also.
No, in the second one, there was tea and sugar.
Is it tea and sugar? And is it a brown tea?
Whoever the tea, just tea and sugar.
Right, because the way you did it, it's green tea leaves, and it turns into brown tea.
No, the brown color, because there was the sugar. If you fire the sugar,
because it's brown sugar.
But no, it's not brown sugar.
It's not brown sugar. So what turns it brown?
The sugar. If you just like, it would turn to the brown.
It wouldn't. So anyway, you're gonna have to clarify that because I just don't understand. It looks like tea, and then it looks like hot chocolate, and I realize there are brown teas, but in some way you have to help me understand because it would confuse your audience. So I would like it in some way to be clearer. Do you guys see what I'm talking about? Like, I know it's possible, but I don't want to make excuses for artists. I want the visuals to make it clear as a bell. So there's a couple quick things. One, this looks great. Everybody, by the way, it's not only the last frame that has the freedom to not have a box. You kind of wonder what would happen if the boxes didn't rule this so much, But basically, I want more clarity. I'd like the bottom of this to be rounded. And if at all possible, I want this to be the standard. This is by far the best. You know, if the whole page looked that good, you'd be in great shape. Oh, I think I'm a loud teacher. This is a kind of big house, actually, and everyone could hear me. I better quiet down. Everybody's in class in my house right now. All right. So I like this, Lee Y. I definitely think there's a lot there you could work with, but I think it needs a little more adventure, and you got a week for it. So this is pretty interesting. It's got a real different feel about it. Let's just take this for a ride together. She's actually letting me know what the concept is. So rather professionally handled. It looks more like a storyboard for a movie, and I'm going to talk to Alessandra about that in a minute. She even shows us what the colors are going to be. It says super rough draft, but it really isn't that rough, because look how great this drawing is. You know, this girl is like really confident cartooning going on. She's waking up, she's brushing her teeth, she's making her coffee. And I love the brave scale. Man, that's a whopping coffee pot. Time is passing. We got a clock to let us know that breakfast is going on. She's taking her blanket with her to Zoom class. That just cracks me up. Really, it's so funny. It's so playful. I got to ask the artist a couple questions. Alessandra, where are you? Oh, I see you. Alessandra, can I ask you a quick question? What is your major going to be?
Oh, graphic design.
Graphic design. Do you have any history in cartooning?
No, this is my first time trying it out because I just recently bought a Wacom tablet and I was just like playing around with it.
Wow, you draw so naturally as a cartoonist. You would think that you had a whole history doing it. And as I said, it looks a lot like a storyboard you make for movies. So there's other fields open to you, it seems, other than graphic design. I think graphic design will be good to you, but it looks like you've got more going. So is your goal to give me a color version next week?
Yes.
It is, okay. So
it took a while to do the drawings, so I didn't
guys,
have time.
I have to show you all something. I'm going to borrow Alessandra's for this. I think you're going to like this. And I wanted to actually show this to somebody else earlier. So I think it was you, Sam. I'm not sure, though. Let me show you all something. I think you'll be interested in this. Give me a minute. I'm going to have to download this. We have a couple left, so looks like I'm gonna have to change my handout a little bit, but I got this started, so I'm gonna do it. I want to show you something. I'm gonna need to get to her layers, and I just want to touch something kind of quickly. I'm basically looking to make sure nothing's locked, and there's a bunch of things that are locked. So, because it looks like there's a very elaborate background, I'm just temporarily taking it out. It doesn't mean that I don't like it. There's a lot that I like about these elements, but I just wanted to show her something that it will be faster. I'm going to make another layer and put it underneath. I'm going to lock her layer. And I want to show you guys something kind of interesting. So the drawing's on top. There's no fills. And I'm just going to quickly grab the pencil tool, which is hiding here. And I want to show you something. I am quickly drawing a very rough shape, roughly, very, very rough, intentionally roughly, underneath the drawing, and I'm going to give it a color. Isn't that interesting? So, like, if you look at her shoulder, for example, give me a second there. Even though they don't match. You know, so it's kind of interesting. As long as I stay on that lower layer, it's another way to work with Illustrator where you're not kind of always getting this super neat, you know, stroke and fill relationship. There's like a kind of a looser, you know, way to look at it. That's interesting, you know. I'm not saying that's the way to go. The only reason I brought it up to you is you have a lot of really open lines. Like there'd be no way to fill her hair because it's open, you know. So if I tried to fill it, any kind of wacky stuff might happen. I'm actually going to that layer for a minute. So that's not going to work at all, right? So especially because it looks like you used some different tool, so there's no fill at all. The lines themselves are fills. So that's probably because of your drawing tablet. You know, can you just tell us quickly, Alessandra, what tool did you draw these lines with? What tool from the toolbar?
I used a brush tool.
The brush tool. So
Yeah,
I'm
the
going to show.
paintbrush.
I want to show you something quickly. I'm going to open up another document for a minute. So here's the brush tool. And notice I've got a green fill and a black stroke. So it is filling, so it shouldn't be a problem. So you did something that's creating anchors on both sides of your stroke. I'm not totally sure what caused that. That's why you're not going to be able to fill here. Like if you look at your stroke, boy, I really got myself.
Oh, I did it like that's create outlines. I have like a version where it's just strokes. So that one's like a shape already.
Got it. So you're going to have a choice then. You could either use the technique I showed you, keep the lines the way they are, make new shapes, loose shapes underneath them, or you could use your stroke version. Listen, about create outlines, it's just for text. It's not really for the drawings. So that's kind of interesting.
I mean, like
it's more
it's
like
called something
extract.
different, like
Yeah, I think it's
outline
called
paths
extract. Yeah,
or something like that.
Yeah, you probably use this.
Yes, in the path. Yeah, the outline stroke. Yeah,
right. It's a very
that's what I
cool
meant.
feature, but something we're going to have to come back to.
Mhm.
All right. I like the way that's going quite a lot. I think others are probably interested in it too. Very sure of itself. It's interesting to me how this light background there, which isn't white notably, you know, this pale blue background is really looking so great with the drawings in the front. I don't know why this set of circles feels so rich, but let's take a look at, see what the story is. Here are the objects. I do want to say quickly, Gabriella, before I go any further. Gabriella, where are you? Hi. You know, the first frame, I would move those objects around a little bit. They're very, very crowded. You know, they're kind of pushing each other around, which can be very beautiful. If you ever want to look up this guy called Morandi, M-O-R-A-N-D-I, Morandi, he's one of the best still life painters who ever lived, and he loved to crowd objects. So I'm not saying you can't. Just saying you have a very airy design on the rest of the page. So that one frame being crowded feels weird. Then we're seeing something in there, and after what we've been through today, I'm not sure if it's sugar or whether I need to know just yet. Then there's something being prepared. What's that? What are the cubes?
It's ice.
It's ice. So, and they're blue, so I might have guessed that. Then I'm guessing this might be coffee, then this might be milk. I just went again, you need the virtue of hearing someone who doesn't know. And another ingredient is going in. So I gotta say, you know, what interests me about yours is, frankly, it's rather repetitive. And why isn't it boring? You know, I'm being very blunt with you. Like really, like logically, I wouldn't think it should feel as good as it does. But it does feel really good. It's one of the things I like best about art. You know, it's like, can you guys hear me? I'm trying to talk a little quieter. You know, it's one of the things I like best about art is like, it's not always expected. Part of it is your colors are working so well. You made a very good choice in yours of not using any strokes at all. So these really nice color choices are right up against each other. The shapes are very simple, so they're hard to argue with. I wish I was a little clearer on what's going on because there's so little action. It's almost like in the first frame, here's my objects. And from now on, I'm just showing you them in twos. You know, this thing and the new material, this one and the new material. It's like, here's how you build a chair. Here's all the parts. And then I get wood and, wood and nail, and then I get nail and hammer. You know what I mean? Rather than hammering. So I think you might want to give me a little bit more, as nice as it looks. Look, by the way, I don't really mind if you use a little bit of text. If you want to tell me what these objects are, this is true for anybody. If you're having that hard of a time, you could actually incorporate a little text. Just keep it minimal, if you think that would help, so I know what the ingredients are. I like the feel of this a lot. I do want a little bit more out of that main part of the project, which is giving me a sequence of steps. So if you have an idea about how you can make it feel more like steps than just a repeated set of still lifes. Because at the moment, that's what it feels like, just still life after still life. So it's not really steps, So a lot of thumbs up, but there's still work to do. Remember, that's the part of this. You want to show me steps, however you can. Make it feel like steps, not just materials, in different order. This artist is probably cringing right now because there's so little done, and I'm going to be nice to them and, leave that behind. Folks, listen, one good news, if you ever, happen to blow it, the digital draft is there. Your time management was completely gone. You're handing in almost nothing. Don't panic. That would be the worst thing to do. I'm very resilient and I stand up for my students. I'm really strict about the final deadline though. So if you kind of just completely miss the boat for 1 week, I'll cut you some slack. I'm human. Maybe someone got sick or whatever. You had to move or 10 million things. I'm human. Just try not ever to do that when the finals do. The biggest problem I have with that last one is I can't help. That person's going to be kind of on their own. Again, if you want to send me a more developed thing during the week, I'm going to do my best to look at it.
I actually have the sketch, but I didn't want to mix it with what I was doing with the Illustrator. But I did it on Procreate, and I just didn't want to submit my Illustrator file mixed with the sketch because that's how I was tracing that.
I see.
But yeah, I do have the whole thing thought out.
If you want to send me the sketch into my email,
okay,
I'll do my best to have a look at it.
All right.
I hear what you're saying. So guys, listen, I just got to double check because there's only 25 minutes left, and did I skip any of you guys? So folks, I hope that was helpful in some way. Art is sometimes I could be exact, say, oh, this needs to be bigger, or that color doesn't work. But usually it's much more complicated. And it's the life that you chose. So I hope in some way I helped you guys move forward. And we'll see next week. If they're much better, then we know that this was rather helpful. Just quickly, I've had a weird day. 2 minutes before class, broken glass all over the floor, for real. I had to clean it up so no one would cut themselves. And then the internet went down. So I really feel like I lost a chunk of time today. I got to look at my own handout and pick. Whatever we don't get to today, I'm going to do as soon as possible, right? I will be sure to include it somehow, though. So let me get a look at my own handout. Give me a second. I do want to make use of this at least 20 minutes. And I think the biggest concern that I really have is about the pen tool. So I think I do want to start there. Guys, listen, this is what we're going to do. If you didn't download today's assets, please do it right away. And if anyone's having trouble with downloading for any reason, we don't have time to troubleshoot. So just remember, you could go to the YouTube video later, the last half hour. Open up the video on YouTube and watch the last half hour if you can't join me. But I would rather you join me. So one way to do it, if you didn't get today's assets, is to go to the handout and click it here. Download today's assets. The other way, would be to come here. This is our menu. And this is the same asset, so it doesn't really matter which one. You click it and let it load. A lot of you guys are on Mac, some of you guys are on Windows. I really can't go into that conversation right now. I really apologize. But we did it last week, so I'm hoping everyone got confident about it. You want to get to that file. So on a Mac, you simply click the name of it. On Windows, you have to get to downloads. Just remember, you have to unzip the zip. So if you don't see a folder, it didn't unzip. Mac people would double click it. Windows people would right click and choose extract. You want the folder. Usually I'd say drag it out, put it someplace better than downloads. That's up to you. I just put mine on the desktop, and I'm going to go to the desktop now to work with it. It's figures that we're going to work. I just want to mention something quickly. We're probably not going to get to this today. I wanted to show you how to mix a little photography. We'll get to it. This is a mask. You might recognize the umbrella for last week. If we don't get to masks, this is how I cut off the umbrella. Some of you guys figured this out. I could tell from the homework. I want to go over it. This is C shapes for anybody who wants to practice the pen tool. But what I want to visit briefly is this one called figures. Now don't open it. I just want you to know this is the one we're about to use. Once you've got access on your computer, just go to Illustrator. So in Illustrator, I need a letter size document because that's about the size of the sketch of the figures. So you could choose letter size from here or File menu, New. So I just want a plain old letter size, 8.5 wide, 11-inch tall document. And I'm going to click Create. All right. Now, last week we tried Place for the first time. So I want to go over that and then some pen tool. Place is when you want to bring a photo, a scan. This could be of your sketch, by the way, taken right out of your sketchbook, right? Right. And now the first thing you want to do is use File menu, Place. So let's go to the File menu in Illustrator and choose Place. And then you go find the artwork you want. Now, I put mine on the desktop. Some of you might have left it in downloads, right? That's up to you to go find it. It's in class CD 124, class 6 assets. And we're opening up figures. Now, before you actually click the big blue Place button, I want you to look at this feature here. As soon as you choose something you want to place, these show up and link should be unchecked. Make sure this is not checked. I'm repeating something from last week. When you have 1 or 2, maybe even 3 things you're placing, it's easiest if you don't let link be checked. When it's not checked, the 1, 2, or 3 objects become part of the Illustrator document, which means you could email it to somebody, or you could drop it in Google Drive, and they'll still see the placed objects. But if you forget, hear me out, if you leave links checked, it's still checked, right? Then you can't give the person the Illustrator file alone. You also have to send the photos, all the stuff you placed, because they're linked. They're not embedded. So at this point in our class, always uncheck link. We'll come back to that subject when we need to turn it back on. So I'm making sure mine is off, and I click Place. Since there's only one object, it says 1/1 instead of 1/3. And I'm going to click in the top left corner. And I could, of course, just move it after that. Okay. When I eventually save this document, that sketch is going to travel with it. I don't have to worry about it. Okay. I want you to open up your layers palette. Now, if your layers palette isn't out, just go to the window menu and find layers. Window menu, layers. Now here's the thing I want to say to you. You're going to want to do this. Sometimes you need to bring in a photo and you're doing an illustrated version of the photo sometimes. Often it's your own sketch. Trust me on the next step. Lock that layer. Lock it right away. You don't want to draw on that layer. You don't want to put anything else on that layer. It's going to behave the best if you just lock it and leave it alone. So, next to the little eye is an empty box, and if you click in there, you'll see the padlock. This layer can't be touched anymore. So it's safe. Once you put the little lock here, ask for a new layer. So at the bottom of the layer palette is this simple plus sign, not the one beside it, this basic one. Click it once. Now that's going to be your drawing. I want to say for the record, you could draw on as many layers as you want, right? But today I'm going to keep it very direct. One for the sketch, one for the finished drawing. Now look guys, because we're short on time, we're going to have to do an experiment and see how the pen tool would behave without us warming up first. What I wanted to do. Could you watch this, please? And again, you'll have time to try this on your own, but if right now I think a demonstration is what we need. So I'm going to ask you to watch kind of closely. Well, the first steps when using the pen tool is always the same. I always click that white arrow before I get the pen tool. Please be sure you're getting the right tool. So you click the white arrow, then the pen tool. Next, I check my colors. I'm at the bottom of the toolbar, by the way. So I make sure the fill is a color of none. And I do want to make sure that the stroke does have a color. So I brought the stroke box to the front, and I think I'm just going to pick some black. I could pick it from a few different places. So I click the white arrow, I got the pen tool, and I'm making sure, basically what I'm doing is, I'm making sure that I'm just going to work with line for a while. You know, I'm going to put the color in after. Because if I leave the fill color on, it's going to hide things as I draw, and it's going to get very difficult to work with. All right, I want to show you something very important, so I'm going to ask you to watch closely. If you look at this figure in the middle, I could tell that eventually I'm going to want to fill her back with a color. But she's got a bathing suit on that's going to need a different color. And let's talk about this far arm, right? It's separate from the back. Maybe this is supposed to be a strap. So you see, I have to analyze that before I draw, because each of those shapes are separate. So watch me draw the back. I got my pen tool ready, and I press and I drag down a little bit. And I'm going as far away as I could get, and I press and pull till I see that curve come to life. Now, this line here is pointing in the wrong direction. Even if I tried to finish the arm, you could see it's not going to work. I have to move this. Last week, I kept saying there's two ways to move it. Don't hold down Command for this, because if you do, it seesaws. So Command is great, but if you need to break a seesaw, it's about Option on a Mac and Alt on Windows. So I'm holding down Option, and I'm just going to move this in the direction I want it to go. Just remember, that's a handle. It's not part of the drawing. It's just an instruction. So I'm going to come over here and pull, get that a little curved. If this looks like it's going the wrong way, I could do the same thing again. Let me zoom in a bit. It's pointing out. It's the direction line. The handle's telling me the curve is being told to go out. If I don't want it pointed that way, again, I hold Option or Alt. And then I move as far as I can get and pull. This is totally pointing the wrong way. So I could hold down Option and tell that, hey, look, the next line's heading this way. That's not an anchor point, though. I want to show you a different way, so I'm going to move forward a little bit. What else? Is there a better way to do it? Do you guys remember last week I kept talking about the sprout method? The sprout method uses the same key, Option or Alt, But instead of grabbing the handle, you just ignore it. You go to the anchor and pull a new handle out. Tell it which way you want to go. I have a couple things that I want to tell you. And I can tell I made a bad decision. This line's way up here because I felt rushed. And now I can't close it. So your teacher just taught by bad example. Damn. I'm going to delete it. All right. I'm fast. So I want to show you this in my favorite way one more time, right? And you just saw why you have to think it before you start drawing. Which shape am I going to make? Because you want to close it. Watch this. And I'm going to get my navigator out so people could watch a good way of zooming. Here's my navigator. I got it from the window menu. And I'm zooming back a little. I'm going to move this down. All right, I focused on her arm because I got lost. I meant to just do the back, and I'm going to do the back this time. So I press, I come down, coming over here, and I pull. Since this line's pointing wrong, I'm going to use the sprout method this time. Hold on Option and say, sprout in new direction. Go this way. I think I can make it all the way down here. So I'm going to get a very smooth line by doing that. If this feels wrong, by the way, maybe to make it easier, I'm going to actually give myself a red stroke so you could see it a little better. There you go. So I'm going to sprout a new handle, Option, and pull right out of there because I want the curve to go this way. And I'm going to try to take it all the way around here. Hey, wait a second. I forgot what I was doing again. I better Command Z. I wanted to come down her back. Today's really throwing you, kindly tour guide. And I guess the best point here is don't talk while you work. Hey, do you guys see this one? I got a pretty nice curve for her back. Right, pretty nice. But this line is pointing out. How am I going to get around her neck? This is a great example of what those lines mean. Option or Alt are the only ones that can tell it to change directions. And I have to take a liberty. Her neck is open, but Illustrator's not good at that. So I have to hold down Option to close it. I want to make a point. So here she is with a fill. And at that point, if I wanted, I could take the stroke off. I would recommend deselecting in between. So I'm holding down Command. Remember, that gets the wide arrow. Option lets you break seesaws. Those are the only two shortcuts. Command for the arrow tool. Option if you need to break a seesaw. So I'm going to hold down Command and click off. And I'm going to move forward. So watch this. There's a new shape because I just deselected the last one. And I'm gonna turn that fill off. As I warned you, it gets confusing if you don't. I'm focusing now on the bathing suit. Anytime I want to change directions, I'm using the Option trick. Doing a lot of dragging because dragging makes curves. Now, I got to tell you, I really wanted to spend a lot more time with this. So I'm going to make that time. So every time I'm changing directions, I'm using the Option trick. I'm sprouting out of the anchor. The anchor is the middle of that seesaw. And I know it's a little hard to see. And I could feel that as soon as I close it, it won't be confusing. And I want to show you something. If I hide the lower layer, you could see it's starting to come together. I could go back at any point with the white arrow or the Command shortcut and start adjusting things as I see what adjustments are needed. And I'll come back and I'll, perfect a little as I go along. I want to do this far arm because I want to make a quick point about that. So, I'm catching my stride now. And I got the fill on again, which is rather confusing. I often find myself needing to go turn that off. And it takes a little while to control those handles. The command key gets pretty far, but if you really need to break a seesaw so both sides of the curve are independent, it's all about option. I want to show you something. If I wanted, in this case, I could go right past her back. And it doesn't even matter what I draw. Why is that? Give me a second there. Because I'm going to send it to the back. Do you remember command left bracket? It won't go to the lower layer. Command left bracket only works on one layer. So I'm going to send it back. This way I didn't have to worry about that one edge. If things overlap, then the edge they share isn't too important, just the one that's in front. So I'm going to play this same game over and over again, and you'll figure out how many anchors you need. And I'm speeding this up a little bit. I'm even letting it fill as I go this time in the interest of time. Oops, that didn't work. So I'm going to turn the fill off again. And the whole idea is, and this is exactly what I'd do if I was using my own drawings. This is some fashion designer's drawing. I'm not doing this just because we're at FIT, by the way. But why not, right? So again, I'm giving her slightly different skin tones just to express space. So you can see the way this is going. Now, look, guys, that is a slightly cheap demonstration because I'm trying to juggle critique and technique, right? It is all in the last half hour and will be in the last half hour of the video. I am definitely returning to this. I intend to be as tough as possible to help everyone get comfortable with this tool. I want to say a couple words. Why am I taking the pen tool so seriously? Because of its perfect smoothness. Someone was saying she just got a drawing tablet, did these fun, sketchy drawings, and they're beautiful. And sure enough, that is a little easier with a tablet. But when it comes to the pen tool, I don't use my tablet because the tablet doesn't help. I'm just going from anchor to anchor anyway. So I'm on a laptop, I use the touchpad. If I have a mouse, I use the mouse. And by the way, I do have a drawing tablet, and I love it for the brush tool and even for the pencil tool. But when you want super smooth, when you have that need, pen tool all the way. By the way, I often draw while on the subway. Put my laptop on my lap and I draw. And Subway doesn't like the pencil tool because I'm bouncing all over the place. I'm command Zing and I'm deleting. With the pen tool, doesn't matter if you're bouncing around. It's all about pulling those handles. Knowing how to change directions. So I'm gonna just say I need to talk about next week for a couple minutes. So we're probably going to return to this very same drawing, these three figures, at a later date, so we could spend more time with it as a group. But if you can't wait, this is a fantastic exercise, right? If it doesn't go well, please be kind to yourself. The tool is infamous. Leah just turned into a cat. Do you see that? I'm kidding with you, Leah. Anyway. Place it, lock it, draw on another layer. There's so many advantages because you could show and hide the other layer as you need to. Really like the way this one's going. Folks, I hope I'm not squashing anyone's brain by too much talk. I'm greedy and I have to throw in one more thing quickly. Let me just make sure no one got locked out. My doorbell rang again. Yep. I just want to say a quick word about smoothness and the pencil tool. You know, in the first project, a lot of people leaned on the pencil tool, which I would have too, by the way. You know, if I didn't know other tools yet, because it's flexible and it works. But I want to add something for any of you who like the pencil tool, just wish it was smoother. Could you watch this? I love this, and most people don't know about it. So I'm excited to share it with you. Take a look. About the pencil. You know, the things I like about it is that it lets me redraw, which is pretty great. It's not the only tool that does that, but that's pretty handy. And it doesn't even matter what I started drawing with. I could always switch to the pencil tool. As long as I go right on the selected path and come back to the path, I could work on it. But if I want a little bit of a hand, watch this. If you double click the pencil, so here I am on the toolbar. That's the letter N, by the way, to help you find the pencil if you can't find it. This might show up instead. So you'd have to press on it. These tools share this slot. I'm talking about the pencil. But once you find it, see what happens if you double click the tool right on the toolbar. Click it twice. These are the options. You'll notice I had mine set to smooth. If it's all the way back here, it won't help me smooth a rocky line. But if it's here, all the way to the right, it's going to help a lot. So I can get a much smoother line. And I could still go in and modify it even with my little touchpad until I figure out what I really want. But all along, I got smoothing turned on. And that might help. I just want to mention that my own formula, because I like this tool quite a bit, and I will use it by hand or with the drawing tablet, either way, I tend to set it to 3/4. Because sometimes it won't let me get a corner like this pointy nose. I was surprised it let me do that. It might smooth it into a round nose. Because it has several choices. This is no smoothing. This is a tiny bit. This, I believe, is the default. Middle of the road. This is a little extra help. This might be too much, I don't know. So, I want to end, first off, I have to say, if anyone has to leave, because class is, we just hit noon, I am not insulted. Just make sure to read the box at the end of the handout before you finish your work. Make sure you didn't skip anything. The box at the end of the handout goes into detail. But if you could stay for 2 or 3 minutes, I am going to continue a bit. Don't feel bad if you have to go, right? I know you got lives and other classes, right? But if you can stay, I just want to say a few things. For the moment, I'm talking about 2 roads to smooth, 2 ways to make things smooth. One is to find out if the tool has smoothing options. The pencil tool did. It's called Fidelity. I don't know, does the brush have it? Yes, the brush also has it. So there's more than one tool that has it. But I will admit, the #1 tool used when you need smooth lines is the pen tool. So all drafting, you know, if you're going to help draw products that are going to be built, you're going to need the pen tool. If you're going to make icons for the next Mac operating system and the next Windows, you're going to need the pen tool. If you're going to be doing logos, which are always perfectly smooth, you're going to need the pen tool. For all of these reasons, the pen tool is kind of a ruling tool. You know, the others are all awesome, and I use them all. As an illustrator, I'll use them all. But in many other fields, I have to lean heavily on the pen tool. So guys, listen, I need to wrap it up. I just want to say a couple quick things to you. I always get nervous when I have to do a critique the week before the final of a project. The final of a project, I'm willing to spend the whole class on it. But I can't do that 2 weeks. You know, if a project's 4 weeks, I can't spend half of it on critique. So this one's always hard on the teacher. We got to look, but we got to look quickly. Zoom made it worse today. You know, I lost a good 15, 20 minutes. So there's 2 things I wanted to go over with you, grouping and masking. Neither one's very hard, and I'm happy enough to do it another day. But right now, all I want you to do is focus on making your project 2 as strong as you can. So we want it to have impact. So if yours is really nice, but a little sleepy, you need more impact. You want it to communicate. Is it confusing or is it clear? Right? You want impact and you want it to communicate. So impact is going to count on the design. Where is everything? How big is everything? What order are they in? What does the empty space feel like? Those are all design issues that create impact. Design and impact. Once you have impact, then we talk communication. But is it saying what it needs to? You know, that's the end game goal, really. Your client is going to think about that first. Hey, anybody have any questions for me? No?
I just have one question.
Yeah, please, Miles.
I don't know if it takes a while, it's fine. Like we could do it in another class, but if I wanted to make, say, a donut and I made a circle and then another circle inside, how do I make that one object without grouping it so that like the negative space actually...
All right, I'm going to peek forward. I'm going to show you something that we're going to spend a lot of time on, but the steps you need are few. So we're talking about punching holes in an object.
Yeah.
I want to show you how easy this can be. So let me get rid of this guy. I'm going to exaggerate it by creating a colorful background. So there's a background, and here's the circle Miles was talking about. Let me choose a different color. Let me just change something quickly. All right, I'm going to punch a hole in the red circle. And his idea was a good one. You know, draw another circle on top. Now this circle, the color doesn't matter. I'm making it a different color just so people could see what I'm doing. Now, we don't want this, we want a hole. So here's the first step. You go to the window menu and you open this thing called the Pathfinder. I'm going to spend real time on this in a few weeks. Here's the Pathfinder. The Pathfinder is actually a set of tools. It looks like there's about 10 tools. The one Miles needs is this one called Divide. Watch this. I choose the shape and the other shape. So in other words, if there are 2 shapes involved, I have to select them both. Click one, hold down Shift, click the other one. They both have to be selected. Not the square, because I don't care about that. Then this button here is called Divide. I only care about these 2, by the way. This is Divide. Click it. Then deselect. Pick the one I don't want. Oops, I got a second there. I need the white arrow, sorry. Get the white arrow, deselect. Pick the one you don't want and delete it. So Miles, check this out. I could quickly add to it if I had a really weird looking donut. I would take this shape and select this one. The one above is Unite. These are the only 2 I'm mentioning. This will unite shapes that you select. They have to touch each other and they become one. But if you want a hole, create the hole, select it, select the object too. So you got them both. It's very important that you have them both. This one unites, but this one divides. The thing to remember about divide is you need to use the white arrow to get at its parts. Click off, get the part you want, and it's gone. Does that help?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Anybody have any other last questions for me? I got a few minutes. No?
Do
So,
you have any advice on how to do like the braids?
Can you say that one more time, Tasha?
Do you have any advice of how I should go about doing like the braids like smaller?
You know, really not off the top of my head, but I would say about braids in general, you know, not that I've drawn a lot of braids, but I've had to draw rope for projects before. I might do something like this. It depends on the kind of braid. I'm using the pencil tool right now. Remember, I have smooth turned on, right? It is possible that I could use a shape a little bit like that. I'm going to fill it. And option drag copies.
Okay.
You know, to start creating a braid kind of look. I might want to go in with the white arrow at any point and start, let me just get closer because I'm generalizing a bit much. Right? So you could see how I'm going to get some convincing hair that way. I zoomed in a lot just so I could get a little slightly more elegant look going. So that might be a way. And remember, you could scale in terms of size anytime you want. Just select the whole thing with the black arrow.
Yeah.
And, you know, get it to be whatever size you need it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Anybody? That was a bit difficult. I felt very rushed today. Anyway, folks, we're in this together. I liked what I saw today, so I'm feeling pretty optimistic about this group right here, right? We're doing rather well. I think next week we're all going to see some surprises. There were one or two that looked kind of done, you know, really. Most of them looked like they were just where they should be. You know, sketches behind, drafts well off the ground, some questions to solve, some challenges, in 1 week left to polish them till they, you know, shine. Hey, Alik, did you have internet problems today? I feel like you probably got bumped out and had to come back.
Yeah, my laptop died and I had to get my charger.
I understand. Today was the first, I've been doing this for 7 months. I never had to restart the internet at my house before. I had no idea how that was going to affect the meeting. Did you guys all have to sign back in? So the meeting waited for me. That's great.
No, someone just became the host while you were gone.
Really? How interesting.
Yeah, it made me the host.
Really? How do you became the host? I guess you were the first box. Well, thank you for hosting. I hope you served hors d'oeuvres.
Well, I don't know. It said that it was recording, so like the whole time you were gone. So I don't know if you're gonna see us or if you're gonna get like a black screen.
All that means is I got an extra bunch of work later today where I cut that part out.
Well, we all said hi to each other and you, so it'll be a nice little surprise.
Oh, really? Maybe I'll leave it out.
You can leave it in.
You know, some of the stuff that shows up on YouTube, I leave just because it makes it more fun. It might have been you guys. At one point, my family walked by. They said hello. And then almost everybody said hello. It's one of the best YouTube moments. Like all these boxes of people. It was so warm. You almost forgot that we're on the computer. You know, you're too young to care about taxes, but I'm old. So I was talking to my tax accountant yesterday. We're on Zoom. First, he has to play a song for me. He whips out a guitar. He's playing a song for me. I thought, you know, Zoom's not so bad. I don't think that ever would have happened at someone's office. He's like, Ira, here's a song before we talk about money. And he had to make me listen to another song before I left. That's why sometimes I comment on your cats and other stuff like that. We sure need some humanity, don't we? So, folks, I'm going to leave in about a minute or two. I do want to say something totally off topic. I really told everyone they're welcome to leave. I promise I'm not insulted. I know you have other classes and other things to do. Just want to